This is the Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto becomes Death's Overlord. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Always wasting no more time, let's start the story.
What a night. First I get tricked into stealing a stupid scroll and then I find out I got a demon sealed in me. What next? Pigs flying. I just want to get some sleep. Naruto swallowed as he crawled into bed and closed his eyes. An adolescent woman with red hair and bluish-green eyes was hovering over Naruto when he opened his eyes after feeling someone running a hand through his hair sometime later. Naruto said, blinking, "Who are you?" As she stepped back a few feet, the girl's eyes widened and she said, "Ah, you're awake. I apologize for disturbing your sleep." "It's okay, I'm not mad or anything, I just was wondering who you are," Naruto said, sitting up and staring at the woman in confusion. According to the woman, "My name is Nori." "Well, Nori, where are we and how did I get here?" Naruto asked, surveying the area. After giving Naruto a perplexed look, Nori remarked, "You've never been here before." When Naruto noticed the debris and dead trees surrounding him, he remarked, "No, I've never seen anything like this place before." With a stunned expression on her face, Nori remarked, "Wow, I can't believe my luck in finding you first, it must be my lucky day." "What do you mean?" asked Naruto, looking perplexed. Nori replied, "Forgive me, it's just that not many overlords appear." With a sideways head tilt, Naruto posed the question, "What's an overlord?" Nori replied, "Well, how do I explain it to you? I got it. Have you ever looked at yourself in a mirror and seen your reflection?" Naruto responds by saying, "Some people think when you see your reflection you are seeing you in another world. That is sort of true. There are two worlds, the mortal world and the spirit world called the negiverse. Where you were before was the mortal world and right now you are in the negiverse." With a terrified expression, Naruto questioned, "Am I dead?" Nori replied, "No, somehow you have been blessed or cursed by the Shinigami, which allows you to go between the two worlds. Those who are able to do this are called overlords because they have power over the living and the dead." "Are you dead?" asked Naruto. Nori cocked her head and said, "Before I answer, can I explain a few things about the negiverse to you? I could say yes or no, but there are several levels of difference here you need to know if you are going to be here." With a pursed lip, Naruto said, "All right." Nodding, she continued, "When a mortal is born, they have a certain amount of life energy in them. Once that life energy is gone, they die, so you can say that every day someone lives, they're also dying a day at a time. You with me so far?" Nodding, Nori responded, "Good. Now when a person ages in your world and dies a day at a time, they are reborn here as a creature known as a minion. Minion are the lowest level of life here. They don't remember anything about their life in the other world, but when one of them that is alive in the mortal world dies, minion transform and become another race. Depending on how they lived their life in that world, almost no one here looks human unless they're an overlord." "So you're an overlord?" Naruto remarked. Nori nodded her head and replied, "No, when I was alive in the mortal world I was a human sacrifice. I have no idea what I was sacrificed for, but when a mortal dies as a human sacrifice, they come here as a human. I don't remember anything about my life besides my name. What happens in the mortal world doesn't matter here after you die." As Naruto put it, "I see." Nori nodded her head and replied, "No, not yet. You don't. I admit I don't know everything about this world, but I do know some things. You see, what makes you different than me, besides the fact that you are still alive in the mortal world and I am dead, is that you still have your life energy. Life energy is very valuable here. I told you I was surprised that I was the first to find you. It won't be long before others start coming to you." "Why?" inquired Naruto as she stood up and started to leave. Nori bit her lip and remarked, "Come, I know, follow me." As he ran after her, Naruto said, "Hey, wait up. If you would send some energy into this tree I will be able to explain." "It's hard to explain unless you see it for yourself," she said, pointing to a dead tree as he caught up to her. With a scowl, Naruto put his hand on the tree and sent some chakra into it, thinking, "Does she mean my chakra maybe?" Naruto's eyes widened as the tree started to glow. A short while later he then took a step back, and Nori remarked, "It's okay, Overlord, just keep sending your energy until it stops glowing." As he began to slowly send chakra into the tree once more, Naruto said, "My name is Naruto." The tree glowed and changed shape, eventually becoming a glowing blue gem the size of Naruto. Nori clapped her hand and said, "Ah, that feels great. Thank you, Overlord Naruto." "What happened?" Naruto asked, glancing at Nori, who had her eyes closed. Nori grinned as she opened her eyes as she said, "This is now you Tower Heart. Tower Hearts are a link between overlords and their subjects. As long as the Tower Heart exists you will live in both this world and the mortal world, but if your Tower Heart is destroyed you will die." The eyes of Naruto widened and Nori replied, "It's alright, most of those who live in this world won't dare damage a Tower Heart. Look at the ground. You see how there is grass growing a little bit right now? It's because it's bathing in the energy of your heart like I am now. It's like a feeling of peace and pleasure bathing me. Because of this many here would be willing to do anything. including becoming your subjects so they may be close to your heart and feel this feeling. As he examined the gem, Naruto remarked, "So this tower heart is linked to me now?" Nori replied, "Yes, and the more powerful you become Overlord, so does your tower heart." As he gazed at the ground, which was now a circle of green grass 100 feet across, Naruto questioned, "What now?" "Well, I'm not sure," Nori said, cocking her head to the side. "I mean, this is my first time meeting an Overlord, but..." A noise suddenly sounded, and both of them turned to face it. Naruto's eyes widened, and Nori uttered the words, "A minion." Recalling what Nori had said earlier, Naruto exclaimed, "That's a minion." Nori looked at Naruto and replied, "I told you already that there are hardly any humans here because when they die they become something else based on what they lived like." "Oh great Overlord, I am Nat," a creature with gray skin said as it crept toward Naruto. As he groveled on the ground at Naruto's feet, he pleaded, "Please let me serve your lordship." "What should I do?" Naruto asked, glancing at Nori. "Maybe he knows more than me and can help you," Nori shrugged. Sighing, Naruto uttered, "Nat, I guess you can serve me." To Naruto's dismay, Nat immediately started kissing his feet. "Oh, thank you, your lordship," Nat said. "You won't be sorry." In an attempt to shake the slobber off his feet, Naruto yanked his foot back and uttered the words, "I'm starting to think I might." Nat asked, "What are your orders, your lordship?" as Nori burst out laughing. With a perplexed expression, Naruto uttered, What do you think, Nat?" With excitement in his voice, Nat uttered, "Oh your lordship, are you asking me to be your minion advisor?" After blinking and glancing at Nori, who appeared perplexed as well, Naruto replied, Sure." "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you," Nat said. "I swear to be the best advisor I can be for your excellence. Should I start constructing a tower to assist in defending your tower, master?" "Defend it?" Naruto questioned. "Why defend it? Master, you shouldn't joke like that," Nat exclaimed. Gasping, "It could be stolen by someone for their own boss. You will perish if a hero destroys it, so you must protect it." Blinking, Naruto turned to face Nori and questioned, "Why would a hero try and destroy my heart?" "Heroes here are not like heroes in the mortal realm," Nori remarked. "Heroes murder those in positions of authority so they can seize it and use it to create an empire in their own image." "I see. Yes, Nat, start erecting a tower to protect my heart," said Naruto with a frown. "Permit me to speak freely, Overlord Naruto," Nori said. Nori remarked, "This debris was most likely a town or another tower at one point," and Naruto nodded. "This implies that the debris may contain gold, relics, or scrolls, among other valuables to store them. I would advise adding a library, a relic room, and a treasure vault to your tower." Naruto replied, "Great idea, Nori. You have been a great help to me, so is there any way I can repay you?" "Leave me by your side so I can experience the sensation of your heart," Nori said. "All I ask is that." Naruto replied, "You can be by my side as long as you want, Nori, because without you I wouldn't have a clue what is going on." Nat replied, "Does that mean Nori is Lady Nori, master?" "Yes," Naruto replied. "I'm honored you would give me such a show of gratitude, my lord," Nori said, her eyes widening. "I'll try my hardest to be obedient to you and please you." After a moment of bewilderment, Naruto questioned, "What do you mean?" "You don't know, my lord," Nori blinked. Says Naruto, "Know what?" "You have made me a lady of your kingdom, my lord," Nori remarked. "My lord, you now have my mind, body, and soul to do with as you see fit, my lord. You can use me however you like." Naruto questioned, "Use you? I don't understand." "Would you like me to show you, my lord?" asked a flushed Nori. Naruto nods, and Nori says, "As you wish, my lord." She then steps forward, gives Naruto a kiss, and starts taking off his clothes. Before closing his eyes, Naruto thought, "If this is what it's like, then I think I'm going to like being an overlord." His eyes widened as he was kissed. After groaning for 2 hours because he had to urinate, Naruto opened his eyes to find Nori's naked body on his chest. Naruto blinked repeatedly as he stood up and exclaimed, "Damn! Is there something wrong, your lordship?" Nori asked, opening her eyes upon hearing Naruto's voice. "Did I not sufficiently please you? If you want, my lord, I can try to please you more." "I doubt there is anything you could do that could please me more than you did earlier," Naruto said, casting a downward glance at Nori. "I was just admiring the work that Nat had done while we were busy, and that made me very happy." When Nori noticed a 30-foot wall, she exclaimed, "Wow, he really has been busy." Naruto walked over to a tree and urinated on it, which made him laugh and made the tree come to life a little. He shook his head and then grabbed his shirt and pants and put them on. Naruto offered her his hand as Nori hurriedly put on her dress again. They then walked toward the wall, and when they reached the other side, Naruto said, There's more minions now, in a bewildered tone. Your lordship, Nat said, fantastic news for some Browns. I can recall the location of a swimming pool, and I have them swear allegiance to your greatness as a result. Construction of the castle walls is proceeding quickly, and by tomorrow, the exterior walls of the castle courtyard should be completed. Naruto replied, excellent, but what is the difference between you and the brown minions? My lord, there are different kinds of minions, Nat stated. The more educated greys, like me, assume leadership roles among the other minions. Brown minions move more slowly than other minions, but they are tougher and stronger. Red minions can launch fire attacks and are fire-resistant. Green minions are excellent at scouting and stealth, and they can attack with poison and are immune to it. The blue minions come last. The strongest users of magic are blues, who can also swim. With a sideways head tilt, Naruto questioned, magic? Nori stated, magic is created by mana, which is a form of energy that can be used similar to life energy. So what now? Said Naruto, nodding. I mean, it looks like you're building the walls to protect my tower heart very quickly. Nat replied, if I might make a suggestion, my lord. Perhaps you should return to the mortal realm now and rest your mind and spirit, Nat said, as Naruto nodded. Naruto replied, how'd I do that, and for that matter, how exactly did I get here in the first place? Now that you've connected with your tower heart, all you need to do is visualize the location you want to be in and think the word Portu, Nat said. I don't know how you got here the first time, your lordship. If you're coming here, it's best to think of the tower heart as the safest place to go back to. According to Naruto, and that's it, Nat remarked, that's it, your lordship. Naruto turned to face Nori, who replied, your lordship, it's okay when you get back, I'll be here. Nat, Naruto said, nodding for suggestions on how to safeguard the tower heart and the best course of action going forward. I would like you to speak with Nori. Of course, your lordship, Nat said. I will ensure that all of the minions are aware that Lady Nori is exclusively yours. Blinking, Naruto asked, what do you mean, Nat? Nori replied, what he means, your lordship, is that not everyone is as respectful to women as you are, your lordship. When Nori said, don't worry about it for now, your lordship, Naruto scowled and opened his mouth. Nat has promised to keep me safe, so you should get some rest. Naruto vanished in a cloud of smoke after saying, all right, if you're sure, but I'll be back. Portu. Nat asked Nori, so what do you think of our master, after he had left? Nori replied, he's not what I would expect of an overlord. I couldn't agree more, Nat said. In fact, he is much superior to a hero, and I like him more than the other overlords I've heard of. Please get the Browns back to work, Nat, Nori said. They appear to be letting up. Before turning and yelling, Nat's eyes enlarged. Get back to work, you ungrateful maggots. Naruto glanced at his clock when he first arrived at his apartment, blinked, and thought, it's only been an hour. With a perverted smile on his face, he said, I thought I was gone for at least half a day. Well, I can get some sleep now, and after Nori I need it. Naruto thought, man, what a dream, as he woke up. The fact that I dreamed I traveled to a different world, and his thoughts were interrupted by a female voice, who said, your lordship, that wasn't a dream, you came here, really. Nori, is that you? Naruto asked, his eyes widening. Yes, Lord Naruto, said Nori, standing beside the tower heart. I can hear and talk to you through the link that connects you to the tower heart. In addition to connecting your energy to it, the tower heart creates a space where we can see and communicate with you. Additionally, you don't need to speak. Just imagine that people close to you can hear what you have to say. In Naruto's mind, like this. Yes, Nori replied. Naruto was thinking, cool, so is there a reason you are contacting me besides explaining about this ability? When I proposed that we confer with your lordship regarding the castle, Nat wanted to let you know that they had completed the walls of the outside courtyard and were ready to start building the castle. Nori said, to find out how to build the best castle to protect the tower heart. I figured you might be able to look into other castles in your world. That's a smart idea, Naruto thought. When things are starting to get better in my life, I don't want to be killed by a hero. I'm happy you were the first to discover me. If I hadn't met you, I'm positive I would have already been killed. Nori replied, I will do all I can to please and serve you, master. Naruto got up, showered, and hurriedly put on his clothes after glancing at the wall clock and thinking, I got to go for now, Nori, but I'll talk to you later. After putting on his clothes, Naruto made his way to the Hokage tower. Once there, he ascended to the Sandame office and, after being given permission to pass by his secretary, went inside. Hello Naruto. How are you doing this morning? Said Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandame Hokage of Konoha, as he glanced up at Naruto. Pretty good, old man, Naruto remarked. However, I have a few questions. Well, if I can't, I'll try to answer them, Hiruzen said. What are you interested in knowing? When Nat's voice said, my lordship, Naruto began to open his mouth. You should watch what you say. I have no idea how much knowledge exists in your world. It occurred to Naruto. I know, but I trust Gigi. When Hiruzen noticed Naruto beginning to speak, his eyes briefly went out of focus before returning, and Hiruzen asked, "Is everything alright, Naruto?" "Yeah," Naruto said, shaking his head anyway. "I had a question. You did tell me last night that the Shinigami is called upon by the Yondaime to assist in sealing the Kyuubi." When Hiruzen nods, Naruto responds, "I see. I'm not sure, but I think the Shinigami gave me a gift when he sealed the Kyuubi in me." Then Hiruzen blinked and asked, "Really? Why do you think that?" Naruto replied, "Well, last night when I went to sleep I found myself in another place called the negiverse." With wide eyes, Hiruzen exclaimed, "You're an overlord now, aren't you?" As his eyes widened, Naruto asked, "How did you know?" "I've been alive for many years and have seen and encountered many strange things," Hiruzen remarked with a frown. He spat out the final words, "I've met these so-called heroes." According to Naruto, "So you don't like those heroes either, huh?" "No," Hiruzen said. "How much do you know about the negiverse, the overlords, and heroes, Naruto?" "They were all power-hungry maniacs who only brought misery and suffering to their victims." "Not much," Naruto said. "I'm confused a lot, even though Nori and Nat have explained things to me and are attempting to explain everything to me." "Who are Nori and Nat?" inquired Hiruzen. "Well," Naruto remarked, "Nat is a minion." "Minions, the servants of the overlords," Hiruzen uttered. "Every day that someone is alive is another day that they die," Naruto said, wrinkled his nose. "Minions are individuals who resemble the ghosts of living people who have not yet been killed or killed but are still alive in this world other than their name. They have no recollection of their past. A person who dies as a minion actually changes into a different creature based on their personality during their lifetime. I have yet to learn the names of the Nat, Nori, and a few brown minions that I have encountered." "Nori is," he scowled. "Yes," Hiruzen inquired. "What is she, Naruto?" "She is human," Naruto remarked, "but she told me that only those who were sacrificed in this world remain human after entering the negiverse." Both she and Nat acknowledge that they are not experts on the negiverse, but they have given me some insight. "Naruto," Hiruzen said, taking a few deep breaths and reflecting, "I acknowledge that I don't know much about the negiverse or the overlords. What are you going to do, Naruto?" "I know I don't like most of them from my interactions with heroes." Naruto stated, "Right now Nat has finished building the walls around the courtyard to protect my tower heart and are going to start building a castle to defend it next." "What is a tower heart?" inquired Hiruzen. "Well," Naruto said, "you know it's possible that I could take you to the negiverse to meet Nori and Nat and see the tower heart, but I'm not sure if this will work or not. Gigi, you'd like to?" With a pursed mouth, Hiruzen asked, "What exactly do you think will happen?" Naruto replied, "Well, I was thinking that if my cloths were able to go to the negiverse with me simply because they were touching me, shouldn't I be able to bring anything I'm holding as well?" Naruto said, "Hold on a second, Gigi, Nori is talking to me, damn heroes." After Hiruzen had given it some thought, according to Nori, "I should have no trouble taking you to the negiverse and back because heroes have been known to take slaves they claim as their own from this world to the negiverse as well as treasures they captured in their quest." Hiruzen replied, "So that's what happened to those people. Very well, I would like to see this negiverse as well as meet your friends." Hiruzen accepted Naruto's extended hand, and Naruto uttered the words, "Portu." Then they were both gone. Hiruzen blinked as the smoke enveloped them both, and when it dissipated, he and Naruto were surrounded by walls in a vast courtyard. Nat approached and remarked, "You've come back so fast, master my lord, are you happy with the walls we have built in your honor?" After surveying the area, Naruto remarked, "They appear lovely, but how do you enter and exit? I don't see an exit door." "Of course not, your lordship," Nat said. "I won't make it easy for someone to get to the tower heart until we have more defenses in place." As Nori approached, Hiruzen's breath caught in his throat. "Don't let him fool you, your lordship," Nori said. When he was trying to plan the castle, he neglected to watch the Browns, who, well, are kind of dumb unless they are told what to do, so they just sealed the walls completely. "They're Browns, your majesty, what do you expect, but please forgive them," said Nat with a frown. "They're diligent workers, and I swear to keep a closer watch on them going forward to ensure they don't make the same mistakes." According to Hiruzen, "So you're a minion? This is Lady Nori, Lord Naruto's concubine, and I am the minion taskmaster chosen by his lordship," Nat said, turning to face Hiruzen. Hiruzen's eyes widened as he turned to face Naruto and uttered the words, "Concubine." Sheepishly, Naruto rubbed the back of his head and uttered, "I am whatever his lordship wants me to be," Nori declared. "My goal is to serve and please him." "Nori, may I ask you a question?" Naruto told me that all you can recall is your name from your time when you were alive, Hiruzen said with a frown. Is that correct? That is true in certain situations. Nat stated yes. For those who enjoy Lady Nori's humanity, she would be able to recall her name, but since we minions lack memories of our previous lives, older, more powerful minions give us our names. Good, Hiruzen said, releasing a breath he had been holding. Although her name wasn't Nori, I thought you were someone I knew from my past. Are you talking about Kushina? Asked Nori. Yes, Hiruzen said, his eyes widening. You're familiar with her? Yes, Nori said. A hero captured her a number of years ago. I read that the hero was killed by a warlock named Minato, who claimed to be her husband, but I'm not exactly sure what happened to her after that. Naruto questioned, who's Kushina? Gigi, an old friend. Naruto, you said that her husband Minato was a warlock, Hiruzen said, biting his lip. He is renowned for being a rune master and capable of performing a wide range of magical attacks. According to Nat, they say that flames lick his footsteps as he walks, but I've never seen him. According to some, he might have dealt with death itself to maintain his influence in the world of mortals. Who knows? You are aware of how legends and rumors spread. Hiruzen said, yes, after considering, or that his cloak has flames near his feet. I understand. In any case, I wanted to know what you specifically intend to do in relation to this Tower Heart thing I heard about. We serve His Majesty, and we will carry out his orders no matter what. Nat stated it won't be long before a hero tries to seize his Tower Heart for themselves or attempt to overthrow his lordship in order to obtain his wealth and knowledge, so I propose that we focus on boosting his influence and number of supporters. After giving Naruto a quick glance, Hiruzen asked, so what are you going to do? Naruto? Gigi, get stronger. Naruto said, I still intend to become Hokage at some point, and I don't intend to die anytime soon. With a smile, Hiruzen said, I see. Oh, you wanted to see my Tower Heart, Naruto remarked. It's right here, he said, approaching the luminous crystal. Amazing, said Hiruzen as he approached it. It gives me a sense of power. That is his lordship power, Nori said. Being in its presence is incredible, isn't it? Indeed it is, Hiruzen said. Heroes will come for it because of this. Nat said, your sense of power is similar to a drug that gives heroes energy. Their desire to feel even more powerful than they actually are grows as their power increases. Hiruzen replied, what happens if the Tower Heart is taken or destroyed? His Majesty will lose his power and become weaker until he is destroyed if it is taken. Nat stated, if the Tower Heart is destroyed, then so will his lordship. They are connected. They are strong when combined, but weaker or destroyed when separated. Therefore, in order to preserve his Majesty, we must defend it. Nori and the Browns all nod in agreement with Nat's statement. Hiruzen thought, you found acceptance here, Naruto. I'm proud of you and hope someday that you will find it in Konoha as well. Minato, Kushina. He shook his head and said, well, I think we should get back to Konoha. Naruto grinned at how protective everyone was of him. I have a lot of work left to do. Yes, Gigi. Oh, that reminds me of Gigi, Naruto said. I wanted to know if you had any books about castles and such in order to better safeguard my castle heart. Nori believed that I should learn more about castles before constructing one. I think I can find something that should help you, Hiruzen said. Shall we go back to my office? All right, Gigi, said Naruto, nodding goodbye to all of you. Nat replied, what should we do while we wait for your return, your lordship, since we can't start working on the castle yet? Nori said, if I may suggest, your lordship, as Naruto scowled, there are many areas outside the castle that haven't been investigated or cleared of debris yet. Even though you may not have noticed it yet, we might come across relics, treasure, or magical objects that could strengthen you or improve the castle's defense. That's a great idea, Nat, Naruto remarked. Keep the Browns within sight of the castle for the time being, but send them out to clean up the area around it and see what they can find. In this manner, they can assist in returning in time to defend the heart if someone comes to take it. Great idea, your lordship, said Nat. He hurried over to the Browns and started giving them orders, saying, I'll have them get started right away. Seems like you got a good man there, Naruto, Hiruzen remarked with a laugh. When Nori chuckled, Naruto questioned, what's so funny, Nori? Red and brown minions are always male, but gray and blue minions are always female. According to Nori, the only people who can be both male and female are green. While males are stronger but less in control, females compensate for their lack of physical strength with intelligence and magic control. Gazing at the gray minion, Naruto's eyes widened and he uttered, so Nat is a woman. I guess what they say is true no matter where you are, Hiruzen said with a laugh. Every great man has a woman bossing him around behind him, Naruto said, laughing. Is there anything else I can do to please you, Lord Naruto? Asked Nori after he had calmed down. Not right now, Nori, Naruto said, giving Hiruzen a sheepish glance. Perhaps later. Naruto, even though you have Nori here, and no offense to you Lady Nori, but Naruto needs to remember that he can't spend all his time here and that he has responsibilities back home, Hiruzen said, laughing perversely as Nori nodded there. He might also look for someone who will take care of him. Of course his lordship is going to find other concubines, said Nat, who had arrived. He'll have multiple mistresses, some for pleasure, others for power, and still others for other motives in order to assist in running his expanding empire. He will also need a number of heirs. Whoa, slow down, said Naruto. What do you mean by empire? How much has the mortal world forgotten about the overlords? Asked Nat, who was now recognized by everyone as a girl, as she turned her head to the side. With a frown, Hiruzen asked, what do you mean? Nat replied, do you still have the lords of the lands? According to Hiruzen, the feudal lords, yes, Nat said. Every one of those feudal lords is a descendant of a former world ruler. Every time the Shinigami grants someone the title of Overlord, it is because a powerful evil will attempt to take control of the world. The Overlord task is to either become strong enough to defeat this evil or perish destroying it. Those who are successful in defeating the great evil acquire a kingdom for themselves until one of their descendants is old enough to succeed them. The Overlord typically returns here because they are unable to pass away from old age because the Tower Heart keeps them alive until a hero kills them in order to seize their wealth, power, and kingdom. Usually, after killing the Overlord, the hero returns to the mortal world to try to take control of it. However, either the Shinigami creates a new Overlord who will rise to power and destroy the hero, or the hero is defeated by the Overlord descendant, and the cycle repeats itself. Blinking, Hiruzen started to reflect before saying, you know, that suddenly explains so many questions I never could figure out. So you're saying that I'm supposed to fight some great evil or something? Scowled Naruto. Nat remarked, evil always manages to survive. According to the minion master who gave me my name, both great and terrible things can be accomplished by humans. Evil will eventually return. Even if you do nothing, what are you going to do about it? That is the question. Will you become stronger to protect yourself and the people you care about, or will you just watch evil grow stronger and cause more and more suffering? You know, Naruto, I find myself agreeing with Nat. Hiruzen remarked, the same thing I told you about the will of fire is what she's saying. You must develop your strength if you genuinely hope to become Hokage at some point. I guess so. Are you ready to go, Gigi? Said Naruto. Yes, Hiruzen replied, approaching. Naruto grabbed Hiruzen's arm before he could say, Porto. Both were covered in smoke, just as before, and when they entered the Sandame's office, Hiruzen scowled and remarked, enjoying yourself? Hiruzen and Naruto both noticed a small boy seated in the Hokage seat. Naruto questioned, who is this? After witnessing the boy leap out of the seat. According to Hiruzen, this is my grandson Konohamaru. As Naruto put it, I see. Hey Gramps, Konohamaru said, how did you do that and who's this? This is Naruto, and that was a special transport jutsu, Hiruzen said. Konohamaru, what are you doing here? Konohamaru said with a sigh. Hiruzen said, I understand it's another attempt. Hiruzen sat down and said, Naruto, have you had your registration picture taken yet? Konohamaru gave him a sheepish look. Then, if you don't mind, could you go get that taken care of as well as your registration? Hiruzen asked after Naruto shook his head. No, I should have a few books for you about what we discussed by the time you finish that, and go get yourself something to eat. If it's okay with you, could you please keep that quiet for the time being? Naruto nodded. I don't want to attract too much attention to myself at this time after listening to what Nat said. Hiruzen replied, you know, Naruto, you seem more mature now than you used to be. Naruto said, I realize life isn't a game anymore, Gigi. As he peered out the window as he departed, he said, see you later, Konohamaru. After he left, Hiruzen thought, I'm not surprised Konohamaru would find himself drawn to Naruto. But what should I do with this new information? And started to follow him after noticing that he was staring at Naruto. I need to figure out how to make sure Naruto is prepared for that information and doesn't turn on Konoha if Minato the warlock is indeed Minato. The last time I saw a hero, defeating him cost more than 200 of my men their lives. I'm afraid of the potential power of an overlord, particularly if that overlord is a Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Naruto asked the boy hiding behind a flag, is there a reason you're hiding, Konohamaru? After he had his photo taken. I would expect nothing more than my new boss to detect me, stated Konohamaru. Looking perplexed, Naruto said, boss? You call me boss, but why? I've witnessed enough of my grandfather's ninja to know when someone is using a shushin on someone else. Konohamaru remarked, you must be strong if grandpa allowed you to shushin him, as you did with him. Naruto stated, or Gigi was just giving an exam to make sure I knew what I was doing with the jutsu. With a frown, Konohamaru remarked, I hadn't thought of that. Well, I have to return to see Gigi regarding some matters, Naruto said as he began to walk away. He said, talk to you later, Konohamaru. Hey, you want to play ninja with me? Said Konohamaru. After giving it some thought, Naruto replied, sure. At that moment, a man with glasses and a bandana approached and greeted him as, honorable grandson. He snarled at Naruto and pushed his sunglasses up, saying, it's time to go. Glare as much as you want, bastard, Naruto mused as he turned and left. He said, good luck Konohamaru. Someday, I'll prove you and everyone else wrong. Ah Naruto, right on time, said the Sandame as Naruto entered the Sandame office after leaving Konohamaru. He gestured to a pile of 10 books and said, I got some books for you that I think you and your friends should look at. Naruto approached and looked at the title Worlds, Castles and Fortresses. Volume 1 of the Greatest Battles in History, Volume 2 of the Greatest Battles in History. Volume 3. The Greatest Battles in History, the Elemental Nations History. Priestesses, Mages, and Knights, World Kingdoms. Monsters of Legend and Demons, an Introduction to Seals. Seals for Fools. The Book of Castles and Fortress of the World gives descriptions about the castles, Hiruzen said, perplexed by the book titles. Several tales of attacks on towns, outposts, and villages are told in the greatest battles in history. By observing how others would attack your castle, you can counter them. You can better comprehend your current political predicament by reading The Kingdom of the Worlds and the History of the Elemental. Those books will help you with that because I can tell you're not used to being referred to as noble. I have read the books on knights, mages, and priestesses and demon and monsters of legends in an attempt to learn more about heroes and to fill in the gaps in my knowledge of overlords, and the negiverse seals are the subject of the other 2 books. I assumed that Minato and his runes were comparable to our seals when I first heard about them. If nothing else, I reasoned, it would give you something to watch out for. Thanks Gigi, but when are you going to tell me the truth? Naruto grinned. As Hiruzen put it, what do you mean? A man named Minato struck a deal with the Shinigami. Naruto remarked with a frown. Someone with a wife named Kushina who looks like a person you know and probably resembles Minato's wife. I noticed the expression on your face. Isn't that him? The Undaime, is it? I don't know, Naruto, sighed Hiruzen. There's no guarantee that it's him or that he truly does remember things from his life, but I kind of hope it is because I know you want to talk to him about your background and your parents. If it were him, I would hate for you to meet him and forget what you wanted to talk about. Additionally, he might not be the same person he was as the Undaime because people change once they arrive. Please, Naruto, he could be just as bad as a hero, if not worse. Do not pursue him until you have a better understanding of what life is like there and you are stronger. When Naruto noticed Hiruzen's anxious expression, he said, all right, Gigi, I won't go after him just yet, but why are you so tolerant of this? I mean, I noticed the expression on your face around Nori and Nat, Hiruzen said. Given everything you've been through, I'm sure you would pick them over Konoha because, in contrast to the locals, they respect you and you seem content with them since you are now a ninja. There is nothing I could do to prevent you from becoming a missing nin and being treated as such. I care about you, Naruto, and I don't want to see the day when you turn against Konoha. One day, I'll show everyone who I truly am, Naruto declared. Simply wait to see Gigi. As Naruto stood next to his desk, Hiruzen gave him a tender hair rub and remarked, I hope you do, and I hope to be there to see that day. According to Naruto, well Gigi, I guess I should go. Hiruzen took out a scroll and said, I know, though I do have one more thing for you. Hiruzen said, here are a few training exercises that will help you get stronger. As Naruto examined the scroll, you ought to examine and complete them. As Naruto put it, thanks Gigi. Hiruzen went on to say, don't forget you have to be at the academy next Monday at 10 AM for team placements. Sure, Gigi, Naruto said, nodding. I suppose I had better leave Siya Portu prior to his disappearance. Hiruzen pondered after he left, please let this help form a bond here and not create a stronger enemy. Naruto returned to the Negiverse to find a Nori reading a scroll, a small gold pile, and a few ancient-looking daggers and clubs. Ah, Your Excellency, you're back, Nat said. I am happy to notify you that we have cleared the area around the castle as far as a minion can see. We have discovered a scroll that Lady Nori has been reading, some gold for your treasury, and a few old weapons that you obviously have first dibs on. I can see that, Nat, Naruto remarked. Well done. I see you have some new items, my lord, Nat remarked. Will they assist with the castle? Yes, Naruto replied. According to Gigi, these would aid in the construction of the castle and provide a number of attack strategies that we could use to repel them. We'll see if I can get a chance to look through them. Before the books started to float into the air and fly around the tower heart while glowing, Nat said, not to worry, my lord. She was speaking some words that Naruto did not understand. Naruto screamed in agony and grabbed his head before fainting. Naruto moaned as he woke up, put his hand to his head, and asked, "What happened?" "Pardon me, Your Excellency," said Nat. "I would have read those books one at a time, but I had no idea how much information they contained." "What did you do and why the hell do I suddenly know what was in those books?" Naruto said, glaring at Nat. "I used an enchantment that the minion master who gave me my name used to enchant her master's library." Nat said it enables her master to receive all of the library's knowledge without wasting time reading it. Naruto replied, "I see. Next time before you do something like that, warn me so I can be prepared for all that information to be absorbed." Nat replied, "Of course, Your Excellency. If I might ask your lordship, now that you know everything in those books, how shall we build your castle? Are the walls around the courtyard just stone walls or are they enforced any?" Naruto asked, clenching his lips together for a moment. Nat replied, "Just stone from the rubble we cleared, master." "That won't do well." Naruto remarked, "The walls could be broken if someone used a battering ram, although that will be done later. We must strengthen the walls and create areas where we can station guards to keep an eye out for potential threats. Are any of you skilled in blacksmithing?" "No, my lord," scowled Nat. "None of these minions are skilled in blacksmithing." "Damn, do you know anyone who blacksmiths?" said Naruto, scowling. "According to Nat, I do, but is currently out of reach." "I know someone, but I can't guarantee that they would assist." Nori said, "They might even assault you." "Why would they attack me?" scowled Naruto. Nori replied, "Because you might not be able to afford them." "Who are you speaking about?" Nat inquired. "The Grey Dwarfs," Nori said. "In addition to being the closest to where we are now, they are the best blacksmiths I am aware of outside of the elves." Nat looked at him and replied, "You're right, the Grey Dwarfs are the best and they won't work for the amount of gold we currently have." Naruto replied, "Damn, I guess we will either have to get more gold or do without what I want." Nat replied, "Not necessarily, master. The dwarfs may be greedy, but they are also honorable creatures. If you challenge the leader of the dwarfs to a battle of honor, then it might be possible to have the leader give you one of their blacksmiths." "But why would they accept a battle with me?" asked Naruto. Nat replied, "The dwarfs don't know how powerful you are yet or how rich you are. You can go and challenge them to a battle and offer them all your gold and weapons if they win, but if they lose, then they have to give you one of their blacksmiths as a servant." Naruto looked at him and replied, "Very well, it's a necessary evil," and pondered. "Of course, if I didn't know that this kind of thing happens a lot in the world from those books Gigi gave me, then I wouldn't do this." As he said, "Where are these dwarfs?" Nori replied, "If you wish, my lord, I can lead you." As Naruto put it, "Very well," Nat replied, "My lord, take the Browns with you. I shall stay and guard the Tower Heart." Naruto looked at him and replied, "No, I'll do this myself for now. Nat, you need them to stay here and help you dig into the ground and begin looking for metal to use." Nat replied, "Are you planning to put a dungeon or catacombs, master?" Naruto replied, "Yes, as well as a maze that can be used to lure enemies into that can be used to trap them." Nat replied, "Very well, my lord, but please be careful." With a nod, Naruto said, "Shall we, Nori?" Naruto said, "Hey, wait, how do we get out of here?" As Nori nodded. As she walked over and gestured to a couple of Browns who moved a stone slab to the side, Nat said, "Oh, well, we built a secret tunnel to get in and out, my lord. It's over here." Naruto grimaced and said, "That isn't going to work, Nat. Once we get the blacksmith and begin building the castle, I want you to destroy this tunnel." Naruto and Nori followed Nat into the tunnel and emerged through the other side, which led to a hollow tree. Nat replied, "Yes, my lord. Is there anything else?" "No." Naruto shook his head and asked, "So which way do we go, Nori?" "This way, my lord," Nori said as she started to leave. "What the hell, what is this gray shit that is in front of us?" Naruto exclaimed after 10 minutes of walking. Nori looked confused at Naruto before her eyes widened and replied, "Oh, forgive me, my lord. You remember how I told you about your Tower Heart energy spreading out and bathing those close to it in it? Well, this is currently the range of your power. Since you are still alive, the area past that ring of influence is blind to you. I hadn't thought to explain how to extend your range of power. Remember how you first created your Tower Heart? Well, you can extend your power reach by finding another item like a gained boulder or a tree or something of decent size and send your energy into it. That will create a tower beacon that will link to the Tower Heart and extend your range. If you acquire a detection spell and place it on the map in your map room, once it's built, if anyone enters the range of your power, it will appear on your map to warn you of their approach." "How do you know so much, Nori?" inquired Naruto. Nori replied, "I've been here for many years and I listen to others and learn from them." Naruto replied, "Makes sense, I guess, so all I have to do is place some energy into an object like that tree there." Naruto approached a tree and sent some chakra into it. After Nori nodded, the tree started to glow before turning into a silver pool, and the gray fog area in front of Naruto started to recede before vanishing. Naruto replied, "That's cool, so shall we continue to the dwarves?" "Yes, your lordship," Nori said as she started to usher Naruto off once more. After 10 tower beacons and 6 hours, Naruto and Nori found themselves standing in front of a cave with an oddly written door. "What now?" Naruto asked, glancing at Nori. Nori replied, "Are you sure you wish to do this, your lordship? I mean, I know you're young, but are you sure you will be able to defeat a dwarf?" Naruto replied, "I don't know, never met one before, so I can't say for sure I can or not, but I need a blacksmith, so I have to do this." The door glowed before opening as Nori sighed and said something in a language Naruto didn't understand. "Damn, things here are so cool, what was that?" Naruto exclaimed, his eyes widening. Nori replied, "The elf language, a friend of mine taught it to me when I first arrived here. Shall we, my lord?" Naruto nods and takes the initiative, but soon a number of short, armored men with large noses and long beards block the way, and one of them starts talking in a language Naruto does not understand. When Nori moved forward and started talking in the same language, Naruto thought, "Damn, I wish I knew what they were saying." Following a few minutes of grunting by the men, Nori declared, "They have agreed to take us to see their leader, your lordship." Naruto replied, "Good, I just wish I knew what you were all saying." Nori replied, "I don't speak the dwarf language, but most racists speak the elvish language." "I see," Naruto said. "Can you teach me?" Nori replied, "I'm afraid that only an elf can teach someone the elvish language. I don't know how to explain it, sire. All I can guess is that it is a spell that only they know." As they crossed a bridge connecting the tunnel, they emerged to a vast cavern city populated by hundreds of dwarves. Naruto scowled until his eyes widened. One of the 2 men who escorted them hurried into the city, while the other stood with his arms folded in front of Naruto and Nori. When Nori stopped moving, Naruto turned to face her and remarked, "The other guard went to the leader of the dwarfs." After nodding and crossing his arms, Naruto turned to face the city. A few minutes later, a number of men in armor emerged, including an elderly-looking man with white hair. The man stepped forward and started talking. The old man's eyes widened as Nori and a few others spoke back to him, and then the old man spoke again. While several of the dwarfs grabbed their weapons and glared at Naruto, who turned to face Nori, who was still speaking heatedly, Nori started to speak aggressively toward the elderly man. As Naruto put it, "What's being said, Nori? The elder didn't believe your claim that you are an overlord. I was just merely explaining to him that you are," Nori said, turning to face Naruto. When Nori heard the old man speak again, he turned back to him and spoke aggressively, and the old man raised his voice, causing all of the dwarfs to stare at him and silencing Nori. After pointing a finger at Naruto and speaking solemnly, Naruto questioned, "What does he say, Nori?" After inhaling deeply, Nori remarked, "He is asking if this is what you really want." The old man spoke again. After Naruto nodded his head in agreement, he then turned to face the dwarf wearing red armor, who stepped forward onto the bridge as the old man pointed at him. Nori looked at him and replied, "That is the elder's son, my lord. The elder said that you and he will battle. If you defeat him, he will agree to your request, but if you fail, he will kill me." Naruto's eyes widened as he turned to face Nori and yelled, "What?" Nori stated, "He didn't believe that you were an overlord and was going to kill you for your claim. I argued with him to prove that you really was an overlord. In our argument, I made a deal with him. You fight his strongest warrior. If you defeat him, then he will acknowledge you as an overlord and give you one of Their Dwarf's blacksmith as a servant. If you fail to defeat his strongest warrior, though, then his strongest warrior will kill you in battle and then kill me after." As she looked frightened and walked away from Naruto. With narrowed eyes, Naruto uttered, "After what, Nori?" With a downward glance, Nori remarked, "After he uses me to sedate his bloodlust." As he passed Nori onto the bridge, Naruto snarled and yelled, "Over my dead body." He was glaring at the dwarf he was supposed to fight, who had drawn a pair of battle axes from his back. "Nori, translate word for word what I am about to say," snarled Naruto. And Nori replied, "Yes, sire, you doubting my claim as an overlord is one thing, but you haven't seen my strength of battle or character, and I can forgive that," Naruto said, glaring at the man in front of him. "But threatening to harm those who are my subjects, especially one who is special to me, cannot be forgiven. I'll prove to you once and for all that I am the overlord as I destroy this fool," Naruto said, his pupils becoming slitted and his eyes turning from blue to red as red chakra slowly began to peel off his body. At this point, ki was coming off Naruto's body, and all of the dwarfs were staring at him in terror. Nori was translating Naruto's words, but she was blushing because she could feel and see Naruto's protective presence. The armored dwarf who was staring at Naruto started to back away, but Naruto vanished from view then, while the dwarf was choking to death from lack of breath. Naruto held him by the neck and glared at him over the side of the bridge, which was hidden from view from the bottom. Nori remarked, "Sire, the leader is begging you to spare his son's life. He begs for your forgiveness and will do anything." The dwarf leader started screaming at Naruto. After glancing at the elder, Naruto uttered, "Anything. He along with all his people now serve me and will do as I command. Either he agrees to become my subjects and I will spare his son's life, or he refuses and I kill his son and make his people my slaves," Naruto said after Nori swiftly translated and the elder nodded. The elder closed his eyes, then knelt down and bowed to Naruto, as Naruto witnessed. "Tell him to have his blacksmiths come to my kingdom and assist my minions in building my castle. Tell him also to bring all his people's treasure, spells, armor, and weapons," Naruto said, throwing the leader's choking son to the ground in front of the elderly dwarf. After hearing Nori translate, the elder started talking right away, and Nori responded. He said that will leave his people with nothing. Naruto replied, "Tell him that his arrogance and pride he had from having those items is what put him in this situation to begin with. I am allowing him to keep his people alive, their homes to live in, as well as food to feed their people with so they may live. They have forgotten what is really important. A leader is responsible for protecting and caring for his people, not filling their pockets with gold. Gold will not remember you once you're dead, or once you spent it. Weapons and armor will fall to the ground useless if the person using it cares more about their own self than the people they are fighting to protect." After allowing Nori to finish translating, Naruto watched the expressions on the faces of all the dwarfs as they heard his words. He also witnessed the guard who had rushed in to speak to the elder drop to one knee, put his fist over his heart, and start talking. Nori translated and replied, "Overlord, you are a powerful warrior and an honorable leader. Allow me to serve you as your subject." Following Nori's translation, a number of people started to mimic the guard's actions, until eventually the entire village was kneeling before Naruto, the dwarf leader, and his son. After witnessing their people's behavior, the elder spoke. Nori translates, "Please forgive me for my pride and arrogance and allow me and my people to serve you not as slaves but as loyal subjects. All we have is yours." According to Naruto, so be it. The following day, as Nat was observing the Brown's labor, he heard marching feet getting closer to the castle walls. Nat hurriedly gave the Browns orders to gather weapons so they could protect the tower heart while she gathered her own. After a few minutes, one side of the castle's walls collapsed to the ground. Nat and the other minions were startled when the dust from the wall had cleared and they saw Naruto and Nori standing next to a number of armed dwarfs. Naruto was pointing at the wall that had been destroyed, and Nori was translating. The dwarfs then started talking back, and Naruto nodded before they started moving around and demolishing the remaining walls. After telling the Browns to keep watching over Naruto's heart, Nat approached him and said, "My lord, what is going on?" Shrugging, Naruto remarked, "Nothing much. I picked up a few new subjects to aid my kingdom." As she noticed an increasing number of dwarfs, Nat asked, "How many are a few?" Shrugging, Naruto remarked, 300 give or take a couple. After her eyes widened, Nat grinned and remarked, "I knew you were going to be a great overlord, sire." "You have no idea." Nat, "No idea at all," Nori said, blushing as she looked at Naruto, who had multiple live bites on his neck as a sign of her appreciation for what he had done the day before. When Naruto heard Nori's words, he grinned before his eyes widened and he pointed to a group of motionless dwarfs, saying, "That reminds me, Nat." Before he said, "Can you help these dwarfs place these items in their proper places?" The group started to approach Naruto. The dwarfs then set down multiple treasure chests and opened them, revealing gold, weapons, armor, books, scrolls, and other items. Naruto and Nori exchanged glances and started laughing as Nat's eyes widened and she exclaimed, "Oh my," before fainting in shock. As he completed the training exercise that Hiruzen had prepared for him, Naruto was perspiring. Construction of his castle and the initial stages of establishing a city were underway a few hundred yards away. The plans for the castle were made using the information that Hiruzen had given him, the information that he had learned from playing tricks on Konoha, the information that Nat had learned from her time with the Grey, who had given her name, and the information that Tinbeard, the dwarf leader, had given him. The first thing constructed were the walls surrounding the courtyard, which was now twice as large as the one the Browns had originally created. They were now 50 feet high and 10 feet thick. 3 distinct sets of metal rods were used to reinforce each wall. Joining them to create a stronger structure, there was a metal spiked gate with 1 foot wide spaces between each section and a gateway with a drawbridge. There were guard houses on either side of the gate, one of which was in charge of the metal gate and the other of the drawbridge. If someone were to attack the guards on top of the walls, They could hide behind the stone spikes on either side of the walls and then counterattack when they could with a long-range weapon. There were watch towers at each corner of the square-shaped castle walls surrounding the courtyard, rising a total of 20 feet above the walls. A guardhouse, equal in height to the watchtowers, was also located in the center of each wall. Each watchtower had a catapult on top that could shoot boulders at opposing armies. Naruto used the storage seals he had learned about in the book the Sandaime had given him. Each catapult could launch 50 boulders, each about 6 feet wide. One at a time. There was an exploding seal on each boulder that, when activated, would explode, showering anyone nearby with shrapnel. Since living quarters for future guards were set up in each of the gatehouses, the watchtower could accommodate 40 men, while the gatehouses could accommodate 15 men. The walls also featured a single guardhouse between each watchtower and between the watchtower and the gatehouses, which could easily accommodate up to 30 men. The cleared area outside the castle walls now resembled a strip mining operation because there was a moat more than 40 feet deep and 30 feet wide where metals and stones were extracted for building. The castle's foundation was laid in the courtyard, which now had 200 yards of width around the castle's exterior walls and another 300 yards in all directions between the castle and courtyard walls. Naruto was doing push-ups when he noticed a dwarf running toward him. The dwarf dropped to one knee and said, "Your Majesty, Lady Nori has sent me to inform you that someone has arrived at the castle to speak with you." After blinking, Naruto uttered, "Who is it that wishes to speak with me?" The dwarf declared, "It's the warlock Minato. What's going on? Why is he here? I think I should get Gigi." Naruto's eyes widened and he went a shade darker. He said, "Inform Nori I will be there shortly. I wish to freshen up a little before meeting our guest since I was training." As the dwarf nods and dashes back to the castle, Naruto says, "Portu," and he vanishes in a cloud of smoke. Naruto, "Not that I'm not glad to see you, but as you can see I am in a very important situation," the Sandaime said, scowling as Naruto and the other individuals in his office went wide-eyed for a moment. "It's him, Gigi. He came looking for me," Naruto interrupted Hiruzen, sounding frightened. Blinking, Hiruzen questioned, "Who? Naruto?" "Hiruzen, shouldn't you send this boy away so we can continue our meeting?" said one of the others in the room as they watched Naruto with trepidation. Naruto made a face. "Look, I know this meeting is probably important since I know you're the elders of Konoha, but Gigi told me to avoid the guy who came looking for me. He gave me specific orders to avoid this guy. Do you understand? Specific orders to avoid him." When Hiruzen realized who Naruto was referring to, his eyes widened, and he went pale before asking, "Are you sure, Naruto?" Naruto replied, "Yes, Nori's stalling him right now, but I don't know how long she can keep him busy and I can't leave her and the others there to get hurt if he's..." Hiruzen replied, "That's enough, Naruto. I understand you did the right thing by coming to me, Hamaru. Kaharu, I am afraid that I am going to have to cancel this meeting short." Hiruzen, as one of the elders of Konoha, "I am forced to ask that you inform us what is going on because..." Kaharu said, observing the expression on Hiruzen's face. Hiruzen replied, "Enough, Kaharu. I know that you have a right to know what is going on, but..." As a cage Bunshin materialized next to both elders and Hiruzen, Naruto yelled, "Fuck it." The room was filled with smoke as all four Narutos in it exclaimed, "Portu." There was nobody in the Hokage office when the smoke cleared. When the group reached Naruto Castle, Hiruzen scowled and remarked, "You need to learn patience, Naruto." The two elders blinked and stared around, stunned to find themselves in a place they had never been before. Naruto yelled, "Well, I'm sorry, but time moved differently here, and I'm not sure how much time has passed." Nat. When Hiruzen put his hands on their shoulders, the elders turned to face him and said, "I'll explain later, but do not do anything stupid. She is an ally for now." The elders were shocked to see Nat running from the side of the courtyard and reaching for concealed weapons. When she heard Naruto shout, Nat, who had come running with excitement, stopped in front of Naruto and remarked, "Your Excellency, you have returned. Lady Nori is currently with the warlock waiting for you." Hiruzen said, "Nat, would you please escort us to see him?" as Naruto bit his lip and turned to face him. As Nat started to lead them away, Hiruzen put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, "Relax, Naruto." Nat then turned to face Naruto, who nodded and said, "Right this way, sire." Naruto replied, "How can I relax when I know that I might die in a few minutes?" As they followed Nat through one of the doors leading to one of the guard towers, both elders became wide-eyed upon hearing Naruto's words and turned to face Hiruzen, who remarked, "You've been busy, Naruto. All will be explained soon, just keep your eyes open and mouths closed." Naruto cracked a grin and replied, "Yeah, after I returned and had the knowledge of those books you gave me shoved into my head, I knew the old walls wouldn't work, so after speaking with Nat and Nori I learned about the dwarfs who are master blacksmiths and I went to meet them, and you could say the rest is history." His head was rubbed. Hiruzen replied, I see well, I am impressed with what you have done. When Nat came to a stop in front of a door, he uttered the words, In here, my lord. Both Koharu and Hamaru's eyes widened when they saw who was standing in the room, while Hiruzen bit his lip after Naruto nods and Nat opens the door. Minato, Kushina, Tinbeard, and Nori were all present in the room. As soon as Nori saw Naruto, she said, Ah, your lordship, you returned. While Minato stood outside the door staring at Naruto, Kushina gazed curiously at the group. Hiruzen then remarked, I'm told that you might not remember your life, do you? I remember you, Hiruzen, as well as you, Koharu and Hamaru. Hello, Naruto, Minato interrupted him. With a gulp, Naruto said, Hi, Kushina said, Minato, is he? As Minato turned to face him. Kushina turned and greeted Minato with a nod, saying, Hello, son. Naruto's eyes widened and he looked at everyone in the room in disbelief before saying, Son, what? Naruto, this is your mother Kushina Uzumaki and her husband, your father Minato Namikaze, Hiruzen sighed. As Naruto passed out, his eyes widened and then rolled into the back of his head. Naruto rubbed his head and asked, What happened? As he opened his eyes to find himself in his room with Nori's head resting on his shoulder. Sire, you're awake, Nori said after hearing Naruto's words. Naruto replied, Not so loud, Nori, my head is killing me right now. Nori replied, You did hit your head pretty hard when you collapsed, sire. Naruto looked, blinked, and inquired, What happened? Nori replied, You met your parents and passed out, sire. Tinbeard has spread the word that you are the son of the warlock and their respect for you has only increased. With a moan, Naruto uttered, Damn it, that why I can't think straight right now. Simply calm down and take a few breaths to clear your head, sire, Nori said, placing her hand on his chest. Thank you, Nori, I feel a little calmer now. I need to speak with Gigi, can you please get him for me? Was Naruto's response after following Nori's advice. With a nod, Nori said, By your command, sire. She then hurried out of the room. Naruto stood up and walked to a tiny opening in the room that let light and air in, where he sat and gazed out. I know you have many questions and I can only guess what you're feeling. Naruto, I'll tell you everything and then tell you why I didn't inform you sooner if you will remain calm and listen to me, Hiruzen said, closing the door after a knock a few minutes later. Naruto looked at him and said, Gigi, I feel betrayed and don't know how I can trust you or what you say anymore. Why didn't you tell me? Hiruzen said, Your father had a lot of enemies in the world. You know how people react to you because of the Kyuubi. That made your life hard, I know, but most of those respected me and my position enough not to actually harm you physically. There was nothing I could do about the emotional damage they were doing to you besides try and be there for you and become a grandfather figure for you to give you the best life I could. But if I would have told you who your parents were or told the village who your parents were, then other nations would have sent assassin after you, and unlike the people of Konoha, they wouldn't have listened to me. I did everything I could in order to protect you and try to let you live as normal a life as I could. I admit I made mistakes, but no matter how powerful I am or what position I have, I will sometimes make a mistake. Sometimes it costs someone to feel pain and suffering. Sometimes it sends people to fear death. All I can do is do what I think is best and pray that I did the right thing. Were you ever going to tell me about my parents or the Kyuubi? Asked Naruto, who had turned to face him, as he peered back out the window. Hiruzen stated, I had planned to tell you about the Kyuubi when you made Genin and tell you about your parents when you made Chunin, so you could better defend yourself should your parents' enemies find out. Mizuki just beat me on telling about the Kyuubi and you haven't gotten strong enough to be Chunin yet. Feeling much of his rage at Hiruzen wane, Naruto sighs and asks, why did he use me to seal the Kyuubi in? Hiruzen continued, there are several reasons he used you. The first is he is an honorable man. He could not ask someone else to do something if he himself was not willing to do it first. The next reason is because the Uzumaki clan, which I was going to tell you about when I informed you about your parents, had a special chakra that makes it where they are perfect to become Jinchurikis. The Shodem Hokage wife, Mito Uzumaki Senju, was Kyuubi first Jinchuriki and your own mother was the second Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi. Something happened the night you were born that caused your mother to release the Kyuubi. I don't know what it was, but Minato has said he will explain it when you were present because he said he has much to talk to you about. Naruto, I'm not going to ask you to forgive your father, but I ask that you give him a chance to explain himself to you. With his eyes closed, Naruto uttered, Can I have a few minutes alone? I need to think. Before turning to leave the room, Hiruzen nods and says, Naruto, no matter what happens or what you do, know that I am proud of you. Minato asked, How is he? As Hiruzen entered the room where Koharu, Hamaru, Kushina, Nori, Tinbeard, and Minato were seated around a table. Hiruzen stated, He's confused Minato. I did my best to make his life as normal as I could, but the emotional pain that he has been forced to endure is more than many of those who took their own lives after the last war ended. If I may ask, Warlock, why have you come here now? Tinbeard asked. After entering the room, Naruto remarked, that is what I would like to know also. Everyone turned to see Naruto, whose expression was so emotionless that it appeared to be made of stone. Minato continued, the night you were born, a masked man attacked your mother and me. He used you as a hostage and threw you in the air with an exploding tag on your baby blanket. I rescued you, but in the moment it took for me to rescue you, the masked man took your mother and released the Kyuubi on Konoha. I'll skip talking about the man for now because it's not important to know. Besides, the man is still alive and he retreated when I fought him to rescue your mother. Your mother and I were able to stop Kyuubi rampage, and I summoned the Shinigami to aid me in sealing not only the Kyuubi in you but also your mother's soul, so that when the time was right she could meet you and aid you in learning to use the Kyuubi power. I also sealed a piece of my own soul just in case the seal ever broke, so I could reset it to save you. The jutsu I used said that I would be sealed away forever in the Shinigami's stomach as payment for summoning him. What happened is far worse. What do you mean, Minato? Asked Hiruzen. According to Minato, I don't know how much you know about this world, but time here passes different than it does the world you all live in. For every minute there 4 minutes pass here. For you it has been 14 years since I fought the Kyuubi. For me it's been 56 years. Everyone's eyes widened and Minato said, in that time I've learned a lot about this world as well as many secrets about the world you are all from. One thing you should know is when a person dies, based on what their lives were like, their bodies are changed. Tinbeard here as well as Nat are perfect examples of what I mean. But one important thing to know is when a person dies in the human world they forget everything they knew when they are reborn here, with the exception of some know their name. Not all but some. When the Shinigami sent me here he made it where I can't die and also made it where I remember everything from the human world. You all saw Kushina look at Naruto earlier with confusion. The reason she was confused because she has no memory of her life in the human world, and besides what I told her knows nothing about being Naruto mother. She also didn't know me. Imagine living in a world where everyone who knew you can't remember you. All these years I've gathered info on everything about this world I could, trying to learn how to find my wife and son. It was through this searching that I found a way to have Naruto in my life again as well as his mother, but to do it I had to bring Naruto here. The eyes of everyone widened, and Naruto uttered the words, you brought me here. Minato replied, yes, I learned how to make someone an overlord by researching a man the elemental nations knows as the Six Realms Sage, but to those here he was known as the King of the Six Kingdoms. For various reasons, everyone's eyes widened, and Hamaru asked, what does he have to do with anything? According to Minato, many years ago, there was a creature of pure evil whose name in this world was long forgotten, but in the human world he was called the Gyuubi. Gyuubi devoured everyone and everything in its path of destruction and would have most likely destroyed all life in both worlds had it not been for the actions of one. Minato took a sip of the water and said, before the sage first appeared, when a person was born, another version of them was born here and looked human, and based on the life they lived in the other world would change them to look like other creatures. The sage's twin, you could say, that lived in this world feared being killed by the Gyuubi and began to search for a way to save his self. He learned of a way to flee from this world to the human world where he met his other self. When he did, he explained to his other self about the Gyuubi and figured the only way to survive was to combine their knowledge and power. They both went to a shrine maiden who used her spiritual powers to merge both of them together. Now think of this: in this world physical bodies mean very little because basically everything here is connected to the spirit. Now in the human world it's reverse, but when you mix both physical and spiritual energy, what do you get? As Kaharu put it, chakra. Minato nods before he yawned and said, sorry, haven't slept in nearly a week. Anyways, as I was saying, the sage now had the ability to use chakra, and with his combined knowledge from both worlds made all the magic and spirit-based jutsu from this world magnified many times over. With this knowledge he was able to battle the Gyuubi and kill it, but you can't truly kill a spirit. All you can do is change it, store it, or absorb it, so he sealed it into his own body, turning him into the first Jinchuriki. But also making him immortal, and I don't mean he can't be killed. I mean that he would never die of old age. When I say immortal, he became a god in human form to both this world and the human world, and he began to teach humans how to connect with their spiritual side more, giving them the ability to use chakra. But this changed their spirit. Instead of having a human-like twin in this world when you were born, your spirit form has been changed into what this world calls minions, which is what Nat here is, as he pointed to Nat. Pointing to Nat, Hamaru questioned, are you saying that when we die that we become that? Minato replied, no, what I am saying is that while you are living in the human world, you spirit form that lives here as a minion. Now the only reason I am telling you this is because I have searched this world and I found my son's minion. Shinigami, when he told me my punishment, turned the shard of my soul in Naruto into a tower heart, and no, I'm not explaining what a tower heart is. Anyways, I figured out a way to summon my tower heart to this world, and since it was sealed inside Naruto, I was able to bring him here, and when he arrived he was asleep, so I merged his minion with him, similar to the Six Realms Sage did, which is kind of ironic since Naruto is one of his descendants. While Nat appeared to have won the lottery, Tinbeard yelled, "WHAT." Minato continued, "The sage had two sons. He had decided to live in this world with his wife and have his sons live in the human world to keep an eye on it. His eldest son had become corrupted with the fame and glory he had, being the son of the world's savior, and was a glory hog. The sage's youngest son was more humble though and treated people with respect and wanted to live in peace. Because of this, the sage chose his youngest son to lead the human world. He became the first overlord. The eldest son became furious and he returned to this world and got his revenge by killing his father and absorbed his spiritual energy. He then captured several species of creatures who were loyal to his father and used that energy to turn those creatures into what we would later call the Biju, and released them on the human world so that he could battle them for glory and honor and become the new savior of the world. Thus he became the first hero." Minato took another glass of water and said, "The hero had two sons with different women. One became the ancestor of the Uchiha clan while the other became the ancestor of the Hyuga clan. The Overlord also has two sons, and one became the ancestor to the Senju clan and the other the Uzumaki clan. The Overlord killed the hero, and then the hero's sons vowed revenge and later killed the Overlord, but then turned on each other, wanting the power of the Overlord for themselves. The son of the Overlord killed them, but as you can guess, their children wanted revenge, so the Hyuga and Uchiha rivalry began, as well as the Senju Uchiha rivalry. The Hyuga were smart enough to back out after they saw the Senju and Uzumaki were going to stay united, and they did all the way up to the founding of Konoha, and now Naruto is the last of the true Overlord line, and now thanks to me bringing him here and merging him, he can become what he was meant to be." Hiruzen continued, "So Naruto is a descendant of the Six Realms Sage on both his parents' side." Blinking, Minato uttered, "Both? What do you mean both?" Hiruzen stated, "Your father was Nawaki Senju, Suande brother. Your mother was the female genin on his team. She missed the mission he was killed on because she had morning sickness from being pregnant. She died giving birth to you. The only two people who knew were Mito Uzumaki Senju and myself, which is why Whirlpool sent a female to seal the Kyuubi into, and why I kept arranging for you both to be teamed up, and you were part of the team sent to rescue her when she was kidnapped. You both had an arranged marriage, but Mito and I didn't want to tell you and instead let you fall in love for yourself, which you did." Minato replied, "How can you be sure who my mother and father were?" According to Hiruzen, "Because your mother was my firstborn daughter." Thud. Naruto fainted once more as his mind processed the information he had been given. After waking up, Naruto found himself back in his castle bed. He asked, "Is that you, Nori?" as he felt a hand stroking his head. The voice of a woman said, "No, son." Before leaping from his bed, Naruto's eyes widened. He turned to see Kushina sitting next to his previous location and said, "Kushina." Kushina stated, "After you passed out, your father used a seal he created to return my soul to my new body. While my soul was inside you, I saw everything that happened in your life, son, so I know everything. I'm not the shell of a woman you met earlier. I truly am your mother in every way now." "Really, you're telling the truth, right?" Naruto said in a terrified voice as his eyes widened and started to get wet. Kushina looked sheepish after saying, "Of course, Databane." Before he threw her onto the bed and gave her a hug while sobbing into her chest, Naruto yelled, "MOM." He cried into her chest until he fell asleep, and Kushina patted his back and whispered, "It's all right, son. Mommy here and I'm not going anywhere. I know who you really are, Nori, just like Minato does. If you hurt Naruto, I'll destroy you," Kushina said, narrowing her eyes as she walked to the door after getting out of bed and opened it to find Nori standing there. Nori replied, "I won't hurt him, I give you my word." Kushina nods and turns to leave, but pauses as he says, "I want you to tell him the truth before he discovers it on his own. Also, he's too young to be father right now." Hearing Kushina's words caused Nori's eyes to widen, and she frowned before looking down. However, the final line caused her to flush, and she turned back to face Kushina, who glanced over her shoulder and said, "Take care of him," before leaving. As she made her way back to the room where Naruto was, Nori thought, "I will." "How many other secrets are you going to hide, Hiruzen?" asked Hamaru when Kushina returned to the room containing the Sandame, Kaharu, Hamaru, Nat, and Tinbeard. Hiruzen replied, "More than you can imagine. I expect both of you to take what you learned here to the grave. Naruto is going to prove himself, not because of who he is related to." Minato glared at Hiruzen and said, "I agree, Grandpa." Hiruzen replied, like I told Naruto. I made a lot of mistakes in my life Minato, I can only do my best and pray that I made the right choice. Koharu replied, something I've been wonder why did you get that smile on your face when you heard Naruto was the descendant of the sage Nat? Nat replied, well you see minions all start out with brown skin and are called browns. Browns are generally referred to as males because browns are very stupid and you can't tell the difference in genders then. Browns are abusive to each other to the point they do more damage to each other than an enemy would. Eventually most browns grow to hate being beat on so much. Some decide to hide as best they can, which causes the browns to look for them, and if they find them beat them up again, so they try harder and harder each time to avoid being found or detected until they become master of stealth, though by this point they also quit bathing so that if they are found the browns won't beat them because they stink so bad. Those who did this turn into what we call greens, and because they have hidden in places that smell bad to help hide them as well as cause them to stink, they build up an immunity to nearly all poisons. Nat scratched her head and said, some browns who try to hide can't stand the smell of becoming a green, so they try another approach. Browns are so stupid that they don't know how to swim and are afraid to get too wet to avoid being hurt. Some browns force themselves to learn to swim and keep getting better out of fear that they eventually become what we call blues, who can go through any amount of water regardless of how dangerous it is. They also learn to attack with spells in long range so they don't have to get out of water where they could be hurt. Nat raised her hands and said, then you have reds. Reds are basically pyromaniacs. They burn themselves playing with fire for the fun of it until they build up an immunity to fire, and then they like to use magic to make fireballs and set things on fire because of being burned so much and becoming immune to fire. Their skin color turns red. Last are grays like me. Nat touched her neck and said, grays also start out as browns but don't like to be hurt, so search out knowledge to learn to avoid and detect danger. Because of this we spend so much time inside researching and reading our skin color changes to gray. We are the smartest of all the minions. Minions who live a long life try to make it where they don't have to change into another creature when their human side dies. Minions have learned that if they stay by an overlord's tower heart, they can absorb some of the energy the tower heart gives off to extend their lives. Gnarl, the minion I trained under for a while, is over 3,000 years old by doing this. According to Minato, I've heard of Gnarl, she's supposedly the most evil of all the minions. Nat said, she is, and she deadly smart as well. In fact, that is how I came to be in the service of Lord Naruto. Gnarl had discovered that I learned her secret of how she's been around and in power so long. She was one of the first minions born. I don't know how she got to be in the position she is, but what I learned is she serves an underlord until he starts to become too independent of her, where she secretly sets him up to be killed by a hero but making sure he has an heir. She then trains the heir to avenge the fallen overlord until they get to independent of her, and she repeats the process. When she found out I discovered this, she sent out browns to kill me, and they were chasing me when I found Lord Naruto. But like I said, browns are very stupid. When they got in the presence of Naruto power, they forgot who they were chasing and what they were supposed to be doing. Since all minions know grays are the smartest, they turned to me for orders, and so I basically recruited them into serving Lord Naruto instead of Gnarl Overlord. The reason I was smiling is I knew some of the history Minato told us from my research in Gnarl Library. Gnarl is serving a fake overlord while I serve a true overlord, and I know sooner or later my overlord will face hers and she will finally get what's coming to her. Before she cackled evilly. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, Minato thought. Naruto woke up to find Nori lying next to him. He blinked, stared at her for a few seconds, and then said, yeah, you're definitely Nori. You awake, my lord, said Nori as she opened her eyes. Naruto replied, yeah, you know, you and my mother look a lot alike. Could you have been an Uzumaki? Gigi told me that Uzumaki have special chakra that made being a Jinchuriki easier. Maybe the reason you were a human sacrifice was because you were an Uzumaki. Naruto, what do you think about me? Asked Nori, casting a downward glance. I like you, Nori, you are very precious to me and I would do anything to protect you. Why? Naruto said, looking momentarily perplexed. After biting her lip, Nori said, I have a confession to make of sorts, and I'm afraid that you may hate me when it is over. I'm not sure how many more confessions I can handle, Nori, said Naruto with a frown, but I'm here for you. Nori replied, well, I lied when I said I had no memories of my past. I just was scared of what you would think of me when you learned the truth. Naruto inquired, what truth? As she said, remember when you asked me about my ears when we were, I told you I didn't know why they were pointy. The real reason is because I'm actually an elf, not a human. Nori shifted her hair to the side to reveal her pointed ears. The eyes of Naruto widened. Wow, so that's how you know how to speak elf. Hey, how come you can't use that spell thing you mentioned to teach me to speak elf? If it wasn't for Nat, I would still need you to translate everything so I could speak with Tinbeard and the dwarves. Nori blushed and said, I told you I had met Kushina before. The reason I met her was because the hero who had taken her was originally after me. He was going to destroy my people, so my father offered me as a sacrifice to save our people. I would become the hero's slave and he would spare my people. I felt betrayed by my father and my people who sacrificed me, so I ran. I ran and the hero chased me. While running I ran into Kushina. I couldn't believe how much we looked alike. The hero thought she was me and took her while I ran. I later met your father and he at first thought I was your mother also, but then I told him that I wasn't her but told him about the hero who I thought was your mother. I later learned about the hero's death at Minato Hand. When some of my people found me, they wanted to bring me back like nothing had happened, like they didn't use me to save themselves. I hated them for it. I turned my back on them and vowed to myself I would never use my magic again, since it was them who taught me magic. Nori, who still had her head down, said, I had discovered Minato and Kushina some time back and I began to follow them because I felt I owed a debt to them, since I can only imagine what happened to your mother when she was in that hero's hands. I didn't get to close because I wasn't for sure how they would react. I was afraid they would kill me, but then I heard your mom talking about a son. She seemed confused and scared, and I was hidden close by when they performed the ritual that turned you into an overlord, though I didn't know what was going on and didn't understand it. I had thought that you were Kushina's son and that the warlock was going to kill you for power or something, and I felt that I could repay Kushina by saving her son's life. I took you and ran with you as fast and as far as possible. I vowed to myself to protect you with my life to pay back Kushina for saving mine. I soon couldn't run anymore and decided to rest, and I began to play with your hair to pass the time, and that was when you woke up. Since I didn't know anything about you besides the fact I could feel you were an overlord because the feel of your power, I acted like I didn't know anything. Nori blushed as she looked up and stated, when you defended me against the threat Tinbeard had made, you have no idea how happy and good that made me feel. You had done something my family wouldn't do, and in that moment I fell in love with you, sire. As she looked down and replied, if you hate me now, I understand, and I'm willing to accept any punishment you deem fit, including my death. After observing Nori looking down for a few minutes, Naruto slowly extended his hand beneath her chin and lifted her head. When their eyes locked, he said, I don't hate you, in fact I think I might actually love you also. Naruto bent forward to plant his lips on Nori's as she flushed. 2 hours later, Naruto and Nori, who had now pulled her hair back into a single ponytail that exposed her ears, came into the room with the others. When Tinbeard saw Nori's ears, he gasped and began to swear in the dwarf language, which made Nori snicker at him. Nat blinked, then took out a scroll from somewhere and started writing down some of the curses Tinbeard was using. Nori blushed as Kushina nodded and smiled at her. Naruto asked, what exactly is going to happen now, without considering Tinbeard's response. Minato replied, Naruto, can I speak with you privately a moment? While everyone else appeared perplexed, Naruto turned to face Minato and said, follow me. Nori began to follow, but Naruto shook his head. Once back in his room, Naruto turned and gave Minato a punch to the stomach, causing him to lose consciousness. After a brief cough, Minato remarked, I deserved that. Naruto remarked sarcastically, you think? Minato murmured, I know you are angry at me, and if you want to kill me then do it, but promise me that you will look after your mother for me. What did you want to talk about? Naruto asked Minato, glaring at her. Minato replied, I want to know, do you trust Hiruzen and the elders? With a frown, Naruto questioned, why do you want to know? Minato stated, your mother been using a jutsu we created to talk to me in our minds while we are touching each other. She's told me some about your life, and for what it's worth I'm sorry. But I didn't have a choice. Kyuubi tried to kill you with its claw, and both your mother and me jumped in front of it to shield you from being killed. Because of that we both were going to die, and Kyuubi would have killed you just to make sure you couldn't be used by someone else to seal him. The only way we could save you was to seal the Kyuubi in you. I didn't speak with Hiruzen and tell him to have you be seen as a hero. I mostly stayed quiet, listening to your mother give you her final words and burning the image of both you and your mother into my mind, since I thought I would never get to see you again. You still didn't answer my question. Why do you want to know if I trust them? Said Naruto, biting his lip. Minato stated, Naruto Hiruzen never once told me about him being related to me or that I had any family. I look back at my life now and wonder how much of it was created to mold me into the perfect puppet for him and his plans. From hearing your mother speak about your life, I fear that he's doing the same thing to you. I think he sees how you were treated here, and now that your mother and I have showed up, he sees there is a chance you could choose to stay here. When I think about Hiruzen, I see a Hokage first and a man second. I believe he will do whatever is best for Konoha instead of his family or friends. Even if you hate me, Naruto, I do love you, and the only thing I want for you and your mother is for you both to be happy and safe. If my death will give you both those, then please enter your mindscape and destroy my tower heart. Naruto sighed and replied, "No, I don't trust him, and I've never trusted the other two. I see now just how much he is manipulating me because he made me fear that you would kill me, so when I heard you were here looking for me I ran to him. I can't help but wonder if my graduating the way I did was all a setup. Does Iruka actually see me as me, or is he following orders? Are Tucci and Ayame being paid to treat me the way they do? I hate it." Minato replied, "I know I can't help but feel the same way, son. But what can I do?" Scowled Naruto. Minato placed his hand on the shoulder of Naruto and said, "Ask yourself this: what is most important to you? What are you willing to do to protect what is important? Are you willing to let yourself be a puppet, or will you take your life in your own hands?" Naruto clenched his teeth and replied, "If you will have me, I would be honored to stand by your side and give you advice if you want it, but I will never force you to do anything you want to do. You can even ignore my advice. I've spent over 50 years trying to get back to you and your mother. I will do whatever it takes to stay with you both if you will have me." With a small smile, Naruto asked, "Are you proud of me?" According to Minato, "I'm very proud of the young man I see you have become, as well as what you have done, both your failures and your triumphs." Naruto broke down in tears and said, "All my life I wanted to know what it was like to hear those words from my father, to be held by my mother. You can't imagine how nice it is to have both those things after all these years." Minato replied, "I can imagine, because I longed for them all my life since I was an orphan." After wiping his eyes, Naruto uttered the words, "I want to protect Nori and Nat and Tinbeard and all the others, even the stupid Browns." According to Minato, "But what about Konoha?" Naruto clenched his teeth and replied, "I don't know. I wish I could find out the truth about if those I care for there actually care for me, or if they are being paid or ordered to." According to Minato, "Then why don't you?" Naruto looked at Minato, who was saying, "Right now Hiruzen and the elders can control you and manipulate you because they know about you being an overlord, and everything that has happened here. I can make it where they don't know about all this, so they can't manipulate you with us." "How?" inquired Naruto. According to Minato, "I can place a seal on all three that will make them forget everything that has happened in the last 3 days. At their age, they will think it is memory loss due to old age. This will allow you to find out who really cares for you in Konoha and give yourself time to get stronger here without being controlled by them." Naruto replied, "But how do I know you're not doing the same thing they are?" Minato stated, "Because you have the final word on everything, as well as all the power. I can advise you and fight for you, but I won't risk losing my family by doing that. All these years all I could think about was you and your mother. You were my hope and guiding light. I would rather die than lose you because you both are precious to me." Naruto, who was observing Minato, grinned, "Alright, I want to be mad at you, and it will take some time for me to completely trust you, but I am willing to give you a chance. When we return to the others, knock them out and seal them all, then have my Cage Bun Shin take them back to Konoha. Then Tinbeard, Nori, Nat Mom, you, and me are all going to sit and discuss what should be the next course of action," says Minato. "Thank you, son." When Naruto grinned, Minato put him in a headlock and started rubbing his knuckles into his scalp, causing him to scream in agony just before he was freed. When Naruto glared at Minato, a smile appeared on both of their faces, and they both started laughing as they left the room. When Minato and Naruto returned to the room, the first sound the others heard was laughter. As he passed Hiruzen, Minato gave him a shoulder pad before putting his hands on both elders' backs. Then all three fell to the ground, unconscious, and everyone's eyes widened. While 3 Cage Bun Shin brought them back to Konoha, Naruto promptly started to explain what had transpired between him and Minato and why the three were knocked out. According to Naruto, "Now that they are gone, we are going to discuss what our plans for the future are," said Naruto. "There is much you don't know about this world. I am sure the others here can back me up on this. Even if we all see you as the leader and respect you, we all know you are young and inexperienced when it comes to things here, right?" As he gazed at the other people present who were nodding. "Well, sorry for being only 14, Naruto said. Tinbeard stated, "I still can't believe how powerful you are despite your age, sire." Naruto replied, "Thanks, I think." As he took a crystal out of his pocket and placed it in the middle of the table, Minato said, "Right now you have a target on your back because of your age, power, and experience. You're not currently powerful enough to deal with all that is coming. Look at this." The crystal began to glow before the table appeared to be replaced with a map. Minato explained, "This is a quest crystal. It records a map that details everywhere you have been with the crystal. Adding several quest crystals together will expand a map and turn it into a map room of the world. All these areas are areas that I have been with this crystal. I've secretly placed seals on other people's crystal when I've met them, linking them with mine to update mine and help expand my map also." When Naruto saw a lot of different colored areas on the map, he asked, "What is with all the colors?" Minato continued, "Those are areas owned by either another overlord, hero, or different races that are not currently allied with anyone. This blue area right here is currently your area, Naruto. Including you, there are 5 overlords, over 60 heroes, and over 200 free races that I am aware of." There may be even more that I am not aware of. So far you have only been detected by the Grey Dwarfs of Tinbeard tribe here. The other overlords and heroes are definitely your enemy. They fight each other trying to gain more power for themselves because they wish to become strong enough to get to the human world, because once there they will be able to gain power quickly and possibly become powerful enough to take over both worlds. Luckily, because there are so many of them, they keep cutting each other's power apart, but if one gets their hands on your power, it's over. With a scowl, Naruto asked, "Why?" According to Minato, you are an actual descendant of the first overlord as well as a descendant of the king of the sixth kingdom. If one of them kill you, then just based on fear alone they will gain power enough to reach the human world, not to mention if they actually get their hands on your tower heart and drain it of its power. You are currently able to go between worlds and bring others with you because of the power passed down from your ancestors. If one of them get that power, they won't have to worry about gaining more power, they will be able to leave this world instantly. Naruto replied, "Then we have to make sure that doesn't happen." Minato replied, "It's not that easy. You are an overlord now. You have a tower heart. Your tower heart can't leave this world. If your tower heart is destroyed, then you dead for good. You can't die unless it is destroyed. The tower heart will bring you back to it if you're about to die and began to heal you with the power stored in it. This will weaken your overall power that you will have to build back, but it's better than being dead. But with your tower heart here, even if you aren't, then if someone else gets it, then they could drain it of its power and use it for themselves. But there is something else you're forgetting, Kyuubi." Everyone was aware of the Kyuubi after Minato had explained it, so Naruto questioned, "What does the fox have to do with it?" Minato stated, "Tinbeard told us about why he joined you. We all know that you tapped into Kyuubi power that day. You were angry and wanted to protect Nori, and that's not a bad thing, but if you became too angry, the Kyuubi could break free. If that happens, both worlds will be destroyed because Kyuubi will be pulled here when you die. Since you are bound to it, either Kyuubi will then start absorbing as much energy here from those he kills as he can, or someone will kill it and take its power for themselves. The only thing we can do is take the fox out of the equation." As Minato turned to face Naruto, he asked, "What do you mean?" Minato said, "Naruto, this world is spirit-based. The life force we lose in the human world reforms here into minions, and once minions die, if they aren't linked to a minion hive, then they will become something else here in this world based on the amount of life force they were able to gain for themselves when they were minions. Everything in this world is based on life force. What makes overlords different and why they don't die is their life force is simply absorbed into their tower hearts, which is linked back into them so they don't lose it. Every time someone kills another person here, the life force either escapes and reforms again as another creature or is absorbed by the creature who killed it, so that the creature who killed it becomes more powerful so they can become stronger and live longer. Do you understand what I'm saying? We have to remove the fox from the equation so it can't take over you. If you get angry, you have to drain the Kyuubi of its life force and claim it as your own." As everyone's eyes widened, Naruto uttered the words, "But why me?" According to Minato, because if the Kyuubi is removed from you and taken by anyone else, then you will die. The only safe way to get rid of the fox completely is for you to do it. Nat replied, "He's right, sire. The world is a barbaric place where the powerful rule and the weak suffer and die. You are an overlord and you vowed that you would protect all those who serve you. By destroying this Kyuubi, you will become more powerful and be more able to protect those who serve you in this world. There are only two types of people, your allies or your enemies. If they are not with you, then they are against you." With his eyes closed, Naruto uttered the words, "I see." According to Minato, "I'm not telling you to become a cold-blooded killer. I'm telling you though that you need to focus on what's most important to you and then ask yourself, how far are you willing to do to protect it?" After inhaling deeply, Naruto uttered the words, "Mom, ally or enemy?" Kushina stated, "I will stay by your side until either I die or you do, son. I'm not leaving you again." Minato said, "My family is the most important thing to me. I'll stand by you no matter what." Naruto exhaled and turned to face her. After turning to face Tinbeard, Naruto said, "Me and my people are yours, sire." He turned to face Nori, who remarked, "My place is beside you always." Upon arriving at Nat, she declared, "I am yours to command, sire." After inhaling deeply, Naruto remarked, "So basically it is versus the world." According to Kushina, "I'm afraid so, son. I guess then we should do this, but how do we do it?" said Naruto, biting his lip. Nat looked at Minato and said, "Sire needs a gauntlet made for him with a gem stored in the palm of it. The gauntlet needs to be able to withstand combat as well as be adjustable so that it can grow as his hands grow, because the gauntlet will be linked to the tower heart, and if someone were able to get their hands on it, would be able to gain access to his majesty power, so the gauntlet must be worn by him pretty much all the time so someone doesn't sneak in and steal it. After he has his gauntlet, then he has to place it against the tower heart and send his energy through the gauntlet into the tower heart. This will calibrate the tower heart and the gem together, sire." Once you have your gauntlet, it might be a good idea to build a minion hive so that you can start spawning minions for yourself instead of the few we have here. Naruto replied, I thought you said something about a spawning pool before for the Browns. When Naruto was unconscious, Nat said, well, about that your majesty, you see, as she described her background and minions in general. Naruto sighed after she finished, saying, I don't like being lied to Nat. Next time you purposely lie to me and I find out, I will punish you. With a puzzled expression, Nat said, really, how, sire? After giving it some thought, Naruto grinned and remarked, I'll make you cook and clean as a servant for the Browns for an entire week. Sire, you're evil. I like it, Nat said as everyone's eyes widened. The more I learn about this place, the more I think I'm going to go crazy, Naruto sighed. Minato replied, we're all crazy, son. Woman drive us that way. Ladies, enjoy punishing him. Tinbeard, can you have one of the smiths begin making me a gauntlet like Nat specified? Naruto said as all the women in the room gave him a glare. Tinbeard replied, of course, sire, though I will need you to come for a fitting to make sure that when it's first made it will meet specifications. Naruto replied, then let's do that. Watching my father get kicked in the nuts loses its enjoyment after the first couple of kicks. As he led Naruto away, Tinbeard said, right this way, sire. They both ignored Minato's groans of agony behind them. Standing in front of Tinbeard, Naruto said, right, sire. The first thing we need to do is fit your hand with a leather glove. After snapping his hand together twice, a number of dwarfs produced leather pieces in various colors. Tinbeard stated, these are some of the strongest leathers we have, sire. Each has been enchanted by elf magic. I'm surprised to hear that considering how you reacted to Nori earlier, Naruto said, blinking. Tinbeard looked at him and said, elves are tricky creatures, sire. They have been known to enchant people with one hand and rob them blind with the other. Unfortunately, they are also the best magic users most can do business with. They are willing to sell their magic to enchant items for a price. My people have done business with a few, but we are always cautious when we deal with them. I must be slipping in my old age not to have realized Nori was an elf when we first met. It probably wouldn't have mattered anyway, Naruto remarked. Now, tell me about these leathers and the enchantments they possess. Each is enchanted to make them feel like your normal skin. Tinbeard stated, you can't tell you're wearing armor because of that enchantment. They are enchanted to never age or tear. In addition to that, as Naruto put it, I see, Tinbeard replied, as for the leather itself, sire, they're the hides of different enemies my people have faced. So you're saying that these are from, Naruto said, his face changing color as he heard this. With a bored tone, Tinbeard said, creatures, sire. The other dwarfs tensed as Naruto grabbed Tinbeard by the neck. Tinbeard stared at Naruto in terror, and Naruto said, listen well, Tinbeard, in a cool, collected voice. What someone looks like doesn't matter to me. What race they belong to doesn't matter to me. I handle them all in the same way. You yourself told me that there are only two types of people in this world. Those who support me and those who oppose me. I treat them as individuals. When I look at someone, that's all I see. I know that there is killing going on and that something that can be used should not be wasted. But everyone deserves some respect, not discussed as if they weren't significant. In a pleading tone, Tinbeard said, forgive me, sire. Tinbeard gasped for air and looked at Naruto for a moment, reviewing what he had said, before saying, may I ask something, sire? Naruto released Tinbeard. Why do you wish to give all creatures the same level of respect? Tinbeard asked as Naruto, who was clenching and unclenching his fist, nodded slowly. Because I know what it is like to be viewed as a monster. As something that shouldn't be respected in life or even in death, Naruto said, inhaling deeply and gazing up at the sky. That ought to be killed like any other animal. Even though I was a human, I was treated that way by others. If you treat people who are different from you with contempt, hatred, and disdain, why don't you treat your own people the same way? How would you feel if your people killed one of their own to make a hide because they believed that a dwarf's hide was superior to an elf's, and then they treated the deceased as though they were an animal? Tinbeard and the other dwarfs who watched were taken aback by what Naruto had said, but as they gave it some thought, they grew to respect him. Pardon me, sir, Tinbeard said in a lowly tone. You seem to be much wiser than I am, even though we are different in age. Pardon me too, Tinbeard, Naruto said. I was wrong to attack you. Hearing and witnessing such disregard for something that was once a living being makes me angry. Tinbeard smiled and chuckled as he said, if it takes you attacking me to teach me a lesson like you have, sire, then feel free to attack me as you wish, sire. As Naruto put it, very well, Tinbeard pointed to a dull-looking blue hide and said, sire, if I may suggest, I would suggest this hide. Why? Inquired Naruto. Because this hide came from one of the world's noblest and purest creatures. Tinbeard stated, it's the hide of a sea dragon. Then I will take it because of your suggestion, but if it is such a pure and noble creature, why did you kill it? Naruto said, taking in the respect in Tinbeard's voice. Because the dragon was already exhausted and injured from fighting. Tinbeard stated a dragon's various parts are extremely valuable. The value of the hide we have there is 10 times that of the gold you currently possess. Sir, the opportunity to cash in on Sire was simply too good. Naruto looked at him and replied, I see. Well, I still will use it, but I think that had you offered to treat the dragon's wounds then kill it, you would have gained a valuable ally and possibly something more. Tinbeard replied, looking back, you may be right, Sire, but at the time I cared more about wealth. They started drawing an outline after Naruto placed his hand on the hide. When he was done, Naruto remarked, so what now? Tinbeard replied, is there anything special you would like on your gauntlet, Sire, besides what Nat specified? After giving it some thought, Naruto remarked, I want to honor the dragon whose hide you are using. Is it possible to include a sea dragon design? I can't think of anything else, but that way when people see it, they know that I understand that there is killing going on and that people need to use what they can, but they should also respect those they took from. Tinbeard replied, then I will oversee the design of your gauntlet personally, Sire. Naruto gave a nod and turned to leave. Upon reaching the door leading inside, he noticed Minato leaning against the wall and uttering the words, come. Minato remarked, I want to see how good you are, as Naruto appeared perplexed. Join me in sparring. With a beaming expression, Naruto started to follow Minato out of the castle. Minato said, come at me with everything you got, son. As soon as they were outside the castle, don't be shy. With a sly smile, Naruto swiftly assembled a phalanx of Kage Bunshin, who, along with the real Naruto, charged at Minato. When Naruto woke up the following morning, Nori was sleeping next to him. He got out of bed with a scream and said, damn dad, I didn't think you could kick my ass that hard, even though I knew you were good. Nori groaned as Naruto stepped away from her, and Naruto grinned as he heard her whisper his name while she slept. Naruto went to the bathroom, showered, and changed into his clothes, scowling as he noticed how badly his clothes were ruined and thinking, I'm going to have to get new cloths. He quietly left the room. Upon arriving at the courtyard, Naruto greeted Minato, his mother, and Tinbeard by saying, good morning. Morning, Sire, said Tinbeard after glancing around. Naruto asked, where's Nat? She left a few minutes ago to deal with the Browns. Kushina stated she went to stop them after they started making a commotion. With a wince, Naruto remarked, shameful people. I've observed her approach to correcting them. Tinbeard held out a piece of red cloth covering something and said, Sire, I am pleased to announce that we have finished your gauntlet. Naruto stepped forward, drew the cloth back, and his eyes widened upon seeing the red gauntlet with the engraved image of a blue dragon with gold wings, and the segmented and spiked knuckles that allowed for movement. When Naruto picked it up and flipped it over, he discovered a blue sapphire ruby in the hand's palm. Tinbeard stated, I had it dyed in color the way to show the dragon the hide came from. Amazing, Tinbeard, you and your people have done an amazing job on this, Naruto said, putting his left hand in the gauntlet in awe. I can't even tell I'm wearing anything, aside from the weight. Tinbeard said, sir, we added something special to your gauntlet at Minato's request. Make a fist. When two 20-inch spikes emerged from the dragon's mouth through the glove, Naruto's eyes widened and he exclaimed, whoa. We refer to them as the dragon fangs, Tinbeard said with a smile. When you strike something, the dragon will bite it in addition to causing damage from the punch. Please inform your people that I am very pleased with their work as always, Naruto said, opening his fist and watching the blades retract back until you couldn't even tell they were there. You have repeatedly demonstrated to me that you are a true master blacksmith. Minato replied, now let's go find Nat so we can deal with Kyuubi. Nat was standing on a heap of browns, dusting her hands together, when Minato, Kushina, Tinbeard, and Naruto discovered her. Tinbeard remarked, you are a strange gray Nat. The majority of grays lack the physical strength to defeat browns. Nat was saying, instead of running and hiding when I went to study like most grays, I instead beat the hell out of one of them as an example of what would happen to them if they bothered me, so they left me alone, making everybody sweat. According to Tinbeard, I see well Sire has his gauntlet now. When Nat noticed the gauntlet on Naruto's left hand, he said, ah, excellent your majesty. We have to go to the heart of the tower. Come, Browns, we have work to do, she said with excitement. As they followed Nat and the Browns, who were still bleeding from Nat's lesson, Kushina remarked, that reminds me, where is your tower heart? As he approached a massive heap of debris, Nat commanded, clear the rubble. Everyone's eyes widened as the Browns started to remove the debris, and Minato turned to say, you hid your tower heart in a pile of rubble. Naruto stated, Sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight. Minato looked up and replied, "True, but once the castle is finished I'm adding enough runes and seals to the heart room to make it nearly impossible to get to it. I'm setting up some traps as well," Naruto stated. When Kushina saw the tower heart fully exposed, he said, "So what now?" "Sire, simply press your covered hand against the tower heart and start directing your energy into it," Nat said. "I'll let you know when it's time to stop." "That's something I'm still confused about," Naruto said, nodding and placing his hand on the tower heart before directing chakra into it. "I just use chakra when I'm instructed to use energy, but what's the difference between life force, mana, and chakra?" According to Minato, "You know how chakra is a combination of physical and spiritual energy. Well, life force is basically pure physical energy while mana is pure spiritual energy. That is why life force is so important here and why many creatures want to get to the human world. In the human world people are 75% physical energy and 25% spiritual. Here people are made up of 75% spiritual and 25% physical." Naruto appeared perplexed and Minato replied, "Remember the Browns that Nat beat up? You saw how injured they were, and yet as soon as they were ordered to they got up and began to move like it was nothing. It's because they have a set amount of physical energy or life force as they call it here in their body. They use their spiritual energy or mana as they call it to mold their life force." Naruto paused for a moment and said, "It's like when you train really hard and you are exhausted and should quit but you want to push yourself just that little bit more. Your body feels like it can't go on but you push through and do it anyways." According to Minato, exactly in this world it is easier to push your mind while it's harder to push your body. In the human world it's harder to push your mind and easier to push your body. Naruto replied, "So what makes an overlord different and how much longer do I have to keep doing this, Nat?" According to Nat, "It's almost there, sire." According to Minato, overlords are balanced, 50-50. You're physically stronger here while you're spiritually stronger in the human world. Naruto replied, "I think I got it but it's still confusing." Naruto's gauntlet and the tower heart were both pulsing, and Nat remarked, "That's enough, sire. They have linked together, sire." "Good." Naruto lowered his arm and asked, "What now?" Nat replied, "Sire, before we do what Warlock Minato wants to do, how about we do a test to make sure everything is working like it should?" Naruto inquired, "What do you suggest, Nat?" Nat commanded, "Browns, line up." Nat said, "Sire, if you would place your gauntlet above each of their heads for a moment and think the word absorb, you should be able to drain some brown life force from them." As Naruto watched the 4 Browns line up. With wide eyes, Naruto uttered, "But that will hurt them." Nat replied, "You don't have to take much, just a small piece is all you have to take." As Naruto put it, "I don't want to hurt them, Nat." Nat replied, "But if you do it, sire, then we can create a minion hive which will allow the Browns to get stronger and also make it where you will be able to recruit more minions." With a blink, Naruto questioned, "What do you mean?" Nat replied, "With all the humans living in the human world, why aren't there more minions running around, sire?" The statement from Naruto was, "I don't know why aren't there." Nat replied, "If you will trust me, sire, I can show you, because explaining it will just confuse you." "Fine, but I don't like it, Nat." Naruto scowled as he walked over, put on his gauntlet, and thought, "Absorb." Everyone watched as Naruto swiftly withdrew his hand as brown energy started to float out of the minion body. Naruto turned to face Nat as the minion started to leap and flee, and Nat responded, "He will be alright in a few minutes, sire. He's just confused. Please do the others." Naruto scowled but swiftly followed the other 3, who all behaved similarly to the first Brown. With a frown, Naruto turned to face Nat and uttered, "Now what?" When Nat gestured toward the center of the tower, Naruto's eyes widened and he remarked, "There's brown stuff floating inside it now." Nat continued, "Nearly everyone here either has brown, green, red, or blue life force, sire. It all depends on what they were when they died. As a minion, a few have neutral, which is white, because they somehow got it from something that was neutral. You have now absorbed a small amount of brown life force. If you already had a minion hive, then you could create a new minion, but since we don't have one yet, we need to make one. That will do, sire. You see that boulder right there?" She was pointing to the boulder that hit the knee of Naruto. Naruto looked at Nat and replied, "Place your hand on it and think brown life force and start sending energy into it. The gauntlet will sort the brown you have in your tower heart from your regular life force and send it into the stone, and like when you first created your tower heart or your tower beacons, it will change into a minion hive." Naruto followed Nat's instructions, and as the stone started to glow, it transformed into what appeared to be a 3-foot wide, brownish plant in the form of a pod that started to emit a tiny bit of brown mist. Nat replied, "Excellent, sire. Now you can either use your own life force to create a brown minion or use brown life force to create one." With a tone of surprise, Naruto declared, I can create a minion with my own life force. Nat replied, of course sire, that is what you've been doing all this time. It's just when you chose to create a brown minion hive with brown energy, you made it where only brown energy or neutral energy could be used. You can't use red life force to create a brown after all. Naruto replied, can I create a minion of any color with my life force? Nat continued, providing you calibrate the minion hive to your tower heart and have a minion hive for the color you are wanting to create. Many overlords have been known to drain their own minions of their life force to recharge their own life force. As Naruto put it, I won't kill my people, watch this sire, you might change your mind after you see this, Nat said as he watched the brown approach. Naruto saw the minion's wounds start to heal as the browns started to channel their brown life force into the minion hive, causing it to glow with even more brown energy. Nat replied, a minion hive can only hold so many minions at a time sire. The one you have right now should only hold about 5 browns. The 4 browns here have now linked themselves to this hive like your gauntlet is linked to your heart. When they die, if their human half is still alive, they will be pulled back to this hive and be respawned the first chance the hive creates enough brown life force for them to live, or you give it the life force it needs to respawn them. Naruto was saying, so as long as their human half lives, these guys can't die for real thanks to this. According to Nat, basically yes. After approaching the minion hive, Naruto started to channel chakra into it. Nat said, excellent sire, you have now linked this hive to your heart. You can order the hive to respawn a minion from anywhere, as the hive briefly started to glow before ceasing. Naruto replied, but that doesn't explain why there aren't more minions running around. Nat replied, because sire, a hive can only hold so many minion. Like a baby can't be born without a mother, a minion can't be born without a hive. The life force of a minion will float around as nothing but energy until it finds a hive. Once it does, then a hive will spawn a minion until it reaches its max. Minions are territorial of their hive sire. If a hive spawns a new minion, then the minions who are linked to the hive will fight the newly spawned minion, and if they don't prove themselves, then the minions will throw them away and most likely move the hive to a new location unless they serve an overlord. Now that you have linked this hive to you, the minions know you're the boss and they will put it where you tell them to. Naruto was wondering, what happens to the minion that gets kicked out? According to Nat, either they get stronger and live until they gather enough life force to make their own hive, find a hive they prove they are strong enough to join, evolve into another kind of minion, have their life force taken by another creature, or eventually get killed after their human half dies and reborn as something else. How do I increase the number of minions my hive can handle? Asked Naruto, scowling. Nat stated, you have to either get an enchanted items that will increase your hive's life force, or you have to give a hive enough neutral life force to increase its total reserves. If you are thinking of doing the last sire, remember your own life force will be drained by doing this, and you shouldn't have too many of any one kind of minion unless you want lots of senseless violence and destruction. Kushina responded, I got a question. Nat, you said something about the hive creating its own brown energy earlier. What did you mean? Nat continued, the hive is alive and is able to gather brown energy from unspawned minions as well as from those linked to it. If this was a wild hive, then it would use that gathered energy to create a new minion, but since it has been linked to Sire Heart now, that energy will instead be deposited into Sire Tower Heart. The bigger the hive, the more energy it will create. Since the hive is a living thing now, it is doing what it can to protect itself by creating and offering minions a place to be spawned in exchange for their protecting it, which is why minions are so territorial of it. Naruto put his hand on the hive and started to send chakra into it once more, saying, really, then I guess I should increase the hive size. I figure it's like how I created it. As the hive grew bigger and started to glow, Naruto started to perspire and pause, saying, damn, that took a lot out of me. Minato replied, of course it did. You may have large chakra reserves thanks to the seal draining Kyuubi life force into your own, but since you're an overlord now, your life force doesn't recharge as you used to. You're going to have to eat and rest a little longer to recover physically, while you will be able to recover spiritually quicker than you're used to, and that is not just here. Is that why I feel smarter than I used to? Said Naruto, scowling. Minato replied, yes, Kyuubi life force was hindering you, but now that you're an overlord it's not, at least not as much as it. You die bed right now. Thanks to Kyuubi you are actually closer to 60/40ths instead of 50/50 like other overlords. Do you know how confusing you all can be trying to explain things? I heard you all the way across the courtyard and it was confusing me, so I know Sire must be confused, said Nori, who had just woken up and was getting ready for the day. Am I that much of an idiot to you all? Asked Naruto. Tinbeard replied, you're not an idiot sire, you just are uneducated on the ways of our world. There is a difference. Looking around, Nori remarked, a minion hive about stage 2 in development if I had to guess. Nat replied, I think you're right, about 10 minions is all it can handle now until we get some other color minion hives, as well as letting Sire learn to use them in combat. I wouldn't try to get any more. I can already feel the headache coming from this, though I am surprised that you could tell it was a stage 2. Not many non-minions can tell that. Nori looked at him and said, the sect I was born into had a rule that any hive that became at least a stage 3 hive was to be destroyed in order to keep minions from becoming too large in numbers. Minions may not be strong by themselves, but in numbers are able to take down stronger creatures. I know this is going to sound stupid, but how were you born? I mean, I thought, said Naruto, biting his lip. Tinbeard replied, that everyone just evolved into something else. No, it is sort of like what you just did with that hive, Sire. When a male and female have sex, they are able to create a new life, like my son. I don't know how it is in the human world, but when this happens, the unborn child drains a small amount of life force from his or her father, while most of it comes from his or her mother. If the mother isn't strong enough to support the unborn child for the time she is pregnant, then she along with the unborn child will die, and their life force will reform as something else. With my wife, I would give her my own life force to help her when she was with our son. Sadly, she didn't survive when we tried for a second child. Hearing Tinbeard's sorrowful tone, Naruto scowled and attempted to shift the conversation by asking, how do we get other color hives, Nat? Nat continued, you have to kill something and collect its life force. Once you get a different color life force, you just have to create a minion hive like you did this one. If there are any floating minions of that color, they will be drawn to the hive, or if any wild ones of that color who don't have a hive come across you and join you, then they can bond with it. Tinbeard replied, but didn't you say that those browns served someone else? Didn't they have a hive to make them loyal? Nat replied, they did, but since they had been gone so long chasing me, odds are another minion replaced them in their hive. With the way the other overlords use minions, it's not surprising. Inquiringly, Naruto remarked, since you're a gray, is there gray life force? Do I need to do to you what I did to them? Nat's eyes widened a bit and he replied, Sire, there has never been a gray hive to my knowledge. It is very unlikely that there are any grays floating around because of how hard it is to become a gray in the first place and how long it takes them to become a gray. Older grays like Gnarl also will betray and kill other grays who they see as a threat to them and their position. According to Nori, like you. Yes, Nat replied. Naruto replied, Nat, what is going to happen when your human half dies? I mean, everything I know about minions is what I learned from you, and despite how violent you are toward them, I trust you to keep the others under control. Nat replied, I thank you for your kind words, Sire, and you should know that my human half has already passed away. The only reason I am still alive is because I am smart enough to survive until I came across you, and now that I am in your service I don't have to worry anytime soon, which is why I am doing everything in my power to protect and serve you, Sire. Naruto replied, but what does serving me have to do with anything? Nori continued, remember the grass, Sire. Remember how it started to grow when it was in the presence of your power. Your tower heart is merely a focal point of your power, while your actual power floats like a bubble around it. All of us who are here now in that bubble are slowly getting stronger just from being here. We use our strength to protect and serve you, while you let us become stronger by sharing your strength with us. That is the power of the Overlord and why we are willing to follow you. Every creature in this world has one thing they know instinctively: the strong live, the weak die. Do everything you can to get stronger. Tinbeard replied, she speaks truthfully, Sire. Even if you had not spared my son or me or gave us a chance to join you willingly, once you proved that you were stronger than we are, my people knew that you had the power to destroy us, so it's better to serve and live in fear than to die. It was after you showed us your strength that you began to show your compassion, and my people started going from living in fear of you and started to follow you out of respect. With a scowl, Naruto remarked, I see. Choosing to shift the conversation, Minato asked, so Nat, is everything working right with the gauntlet? Nat replied, yes, everything appears to be working as it should. I should mention, Sire, that your treasure room, library, relic room, and armory are all linked to your gauntlet. You can summon anything in those rooms to you, or you can absorb them like you did the brown life force, and your tower heart will send those items to the right location in the tower for storage. According to Minato, including minions that are linked to the hives that are linked to your heart, right? Nat replied, yes, you can summon any living brown who is connected to your hive, or you can spawn one with your life force. As long as you are in their presence to order them around, they will serve you, but if they get lost from you, then they will be like a wild brown. Oh look, Sire, we have a new brown. The final statement was said with excitement. Everyone turned to watch the four browns thrash a fifth that was retaliating against them. When Naruto saw this, he scowled and uttered the words, Nat. With a sigh, Nat said, yes, sir. Then she went over and grabbed two browns, slammed their heads together, and kicked another. She turned, picked up the final two, and tossed them into the debris pile. After dusting her hands and placing all 5 browns on the ground, Nat commanded, stand up and show proper respect to Overlords. Naruto, As the minions formed a line beside one another, Tinbeard said, amused, "That's one way to show who's boss." Naruto replied, "Nat, where would you suggest the minion hive be placed?" Nat replied, "About that, sire, I have an idea, but I was wondering, what exactly are your plans for that moat we dug to get the resources for the castle?" "How goes that project, Tinbeard?" asked Naruto. Tinbeard stated, "We have the first one nearly done, sire. I've had one forge working specifically on that project while the others have been working on the metal supports for the castle." "What project?" Minato asked, glancing at Tinbeard and Naruto in both directions. Naruto continued, "Gigi gave me a set of books on basic sealing. In it was instructions on storage seals. We are already using storage seals and exploding tag seals on the catapults. I was thinking that if we just filled the moat with water, then someone would either bring small boats or someone who knows how to swim to cross it, so what I thought is, why not make a trap out of it?" Tinbear is currently making a set of metal plates that will cover from the castle wall to about 2 feet over on the other side. That way, if an enemy charges at the castle and they step on the plates, we can just have the plates seal activate and seal themselves, making it where the guys standing on it will fall to their deaths or at least be severely injured. I was thinking of putting some spikes down there also to make sure they died when they hit the ground. Minato replied, "Not a bad trap. How do you go back to resetting the plates?" Naruto replied, "Unfortunately, the plates can only be used once per battle. Once the battle is over, someone would have to go down and get the part of the plate that fell below that we can carry back to the top and unseal." According to Minato, "I see," Kushina responded, "Why not have a summon seal that will resummon it and unseal it back in place after say 2 minutes? That way it can be used over and over again without having to manually reset it." He said, "I don't know how to do a seal like that." Kushina looked at Minato and responded, "Son, I'm an Uzumaki, a clan who practically created sealing, and your father is a seal master himself as well as his knowledge of runes. Something like that wouldn't be hard. Hell, we could make it where you have a false bottom halfway down, so if anything lands on it they will be instantly summoned somewhere else." When everyone's eyes widened, Naruto uttered the words, "You can do that?" Nodding, Naruto inquired, "Is there any way to set it up where the people who land on it can be sent somewhere else? One of my fears with this trap was if a child were to accidentally step on it and activate the trap and fall to their death." He took a moment to reflect as he said, "I can place a modified summon seal on the false bottom that would take anyone who landed on it to a room where they would be knocked out as soon as they arrived by a modified sleep seal. That way if a child does fall in, then a guard could get them out of the room and wake them up, but if an enemy falls in they can either be taken and tortured for information or killed." Nat responded, "That would work greatly, sire. For something I was thinking that I think you would like. I was going to suggest placing a cemetery down there. We could place it under the false floor. We can also put the minion hives down there because I know that the Overlord Gnarl serves has a minion named Mortis who is able to resurrect the dead with life force. All he has to do is have the bones of the one who died to do it. I don't know how he does it, but it is possible another minion might learn to do it, or maybe a future ally." Naruto replied, "I do like the sound of that because I don't like the idea of losing those who I care for. If we were able to bring those we lose back to life, I would gladly lose a little life force to bring them back if I can." Tinbeard carefully worded his statement to show appropriate respect and avoid upsetting Naruto again. "I've heard of those resurrection spells. They do work, but only as long as the person being brought back to life hasn't already formed as something else. That usually means that they have to be brought back to life within a week. After that the remains won't do any good besides being used for an ingredient in something else, like your gauntlet, sire." When Naruto sees and hears this, he gives Tinbeard a grateful smile. Nat replied, "Also I was thinking it could be a place we can send those children who aren't strong enough to fight to stay out of the way should the castle be attacked. Sire, I've heard you talk with the dwarfs about their fears for the weaker members of their people." According to Minato, that is a very good point. Kushina commented, "Maybe set up a location down there for healers so the wounded could be taken there to be healed and be able to return if the battle lasts that long. Only problem is we don't have a healer." When Nori heard this, she scowled and looked down. Naruto replied, "How long would it take to do what you and Mom suggested, Dad?" When Minato heard Naruto's name, his eyes widened, and he replied, A few days depending on how much they got done." Nat replied, "Sire, I just thought of something. Why not just get rid of the fake bottom and have it where anyone touches the plates instantly gets summoned to the cell?" Naruto stated, "Intimidation. Nat, if the enemy see their comrades fall to what they think is their death, they will then stop attacking that way and divert to another way. Instead of charging the castle, they would fall back and work on long-range attacks and possibly try to build something to make it where they can cross the plates without triggering it. That will give us time to prepare for them as well as plan a counter-attack." "I can't believe how good you are at this, son," Kushina remarked. With a sheepish head rub, Naruto remarked, Gigi gave me a couple of books that Nat used a spell on to shove their knowledge into me. Most of these ideas and strategies were from them. Nat replied, if those few books were able to help you this much, sire, you should work on trying to gather more of them when you return to the human world. Said Minato. What is it, Minato? Asked Kushina. Minato replied, Naruto is able to bring Hiruzen and the elders here. Could he bring someone from here there? Nat replied, of course heroes have been able to do it when they have gotten strong enough to go to the other world. It would just take sire a little life force to do so. Why? After giving it some thought and glancing at Minato, Naruto bit his lip and continued to think before uttering the words, there's something not right here. Kushina asked, what do you mean, son? As everyone blinked and turned to face Naruto. Naruto continued, if heroes can go to the other world and take people with them, then why, with so many heroes in the world, are they not in the human world more, and why aren't the overlords? With as power hungry as the other overlords seem to be to me, wouldn't they do everything they could to get there? Why stay here fighting when they could go to the human world? Gain as much power as they can and return before fear missing is noticed. I mean, the drain to pull the elders and Gigi here and back wasn't that much. He was staring at Minato. Minato looked uneasy on the surface and replied, remember the 75/25 thing I mentioned? Humans are 75% life force and 25% mana. In order for someone from here to go there, you would have to use your life force to replace the missing amount of life force we have. For me, since I'm basically an overlord myself, it would be maybe just a little bit more than the elders. For everyone else it would be double what it is for me. Most likely, if I had to guess, the heroes and overlords must realize if they were to bring themselves and others with them, then they would have to waste a lot of life force to get there. Then he said, that's possible. It probably also is a question about how much life force a person actually needs, because I doubt the amount of life force it takes to bring a Brown would be equal to what it takes to bring Nori. Nat continued, there is also the fact, sire, that with you using your life force to take any one of us there, they will get stronger by absorbing that life force. According to Minato, that's right, they probably fear having their power taken. Well, I was thinking, Dad, if I gave you some of my life force, can you go back to Konoha? I figure with your skills you should be able to, Naruto said, scowling as he turned to face Minato. Everyone was shocked when Minato's punch sent Naruto skidding back the next instant. What is the meaning of this, warlock? Tinbeard asked, removing his axe from his back. With a start, Kushina glanced between Minato and Naruto and exclaimed, Minato, what's going on here? Nat and Nori shifted to Naruto's side, wiping some blood from his face. Naruto scowled and uttered, you attacked me because you can't go back. Could you? You must visualize your destination before you can use pour to the other overlords, and heroes avoid going there because of this. Like you, they have no idea what it looks like to return there. Like Nori looks like mom. You look like my dad, but you're not him, are you, warlock? Minato glared at Naruto. According to Minato, what gave me away? What do you mean, son? Kushina asked, glancing back and forth. What on earth is happening? Naruto replied, Dad is supposed to be a seal master. Why is it that he seemed confused with the seals we were speaking about? Minato, Kushina said softly as he glanced at Minato. Minato chuckled and remarked, what a stupid woman. The man was covered in smoke, and when the smoke cleared, he was standing in a suit of armor. When Kushina and Nori saw the armor, they both gasped and backed away in terror. I suppose I can understand where the idiot gets his brains if you can't figure it out when he spelled it out for you, but maybe this will explain things a little more. No, it can't be, Kushina said. It's him, sir. Nori said, the hero, who betrayed me to my people, is supposed to be dead. Stupid elf, said Hero. Minato, there's a reason I'm known as a warlock. I battle powerful creatures in an attempt to find one that can defeat me before I take control of their bodies, claim their knowledge, and absorb their life force. I found this idiot when he was trying to figure out how to get you here. I honestly wouldn't have given a damn, but he put so much effort into it and learned so much valuable information that I became interested. I reasoned that if I could complete what he had begun, I could call you here and perhaps take possession of your body and power. When I first saw the elf, I thought I had luck because he thought she was here as a human. I thought she was your mother, and I knew that if I was going to bring you here, I needed both of her and this body's blood. When the worthless elf pointed me in the direction of the actual woman I was looking for, I was lucky naturally. I hadn't anticipated that the drain would actually call you here, so I backed off in case you attacked first. But that dumb elf took you instead. I had to wait to find out where your tower heart was so that I could defeat you and seize your power, because by the time we found you again, you had already become a threat. As she charged at him, Kushina clenched her fist and yelled, you bastard. However, he quickly grabbed her by the neck, held her in midair, and said, stay where you belong, bitch. Before he slammed her into the ground, he said, on your knees. As he charged forward, Naruto saw this and yelled, "MOM." Warlock grabbed Naruto by the neck and deflected his punch, saying, "Like mother, like son. What boy? Think you actually had a chance?" Warlock asked, "I wanted to spar with you for a reason to learn your fighting technique and gain insight into your strength and speed. I don't know much about the seals this human knew. But I do know one thing." He took a blade out of his pocket and stabbed Naruto in the stomach, where the seal was, saying, "If a seal is damaged, it's basically useless." As Naruto's eyes widened in agony, Nat yelled, "Sire." When Tinbeard charged Warlock, the Warlock threw Naruto at him to slow him down, and Tinbeard said, "Your Majesty, let him go." As the red chakra started to flow from Naruto, Tinbeard screamed and released Naruto. Warlock replied, "Yes, come to me, Kyuubi, show me your power so I may take it." As his flesh started to peel away, Naruto's eyes turned red and he screamed, his whole body covered in thicker, redder chakra. "Fool, you have no idea what you have done," Kushina thought as she awoke to the pressure of the Kyuubi. Her eyes widening and scooting away in a little fear as the Warlock left. She started crying as more and more chakra started to fall off Naruto, forming a rough outline of a fox before the chakra started to bubble, and swiftly 2, 3, and 4 tails of chakra appeared as Kyuubi chakra completely covered Naruto. "If Naruto or Kyuubi doesn't kill you, I fucking will," she said. The black face of the 4-tailed Kyuubi was made out of chakra, and its eyes were white. While the minions were on the ground, gasping for air, their faces plastered with expressions of complete terror, the Warlock, who had been laughing, started to look a little alarmed. White bones started to show up around Kyuubi's body as its 5th tail started to take shape and grow in size. As she started to run with both women on her shoulders, Kushina screamed loudly and grabbed Nori and Nat, who were frozen at the dwarves, saying, "Get the fuck out of here, Kyuubi about to emerge." As he gave the order for his people to gather the Browns and leave the castle, Tinbeard thought, "My god." When the Kyuubi fully emerged in all his glory, the back wall of the castle was destroyed, and Naruto's tower heart pulsed with power as the explosion occurred outside the castle. The ground started to shake as the very balance of the spirit world felt the power of the Kyuubi in all its glory. In the mortal world, the Kyuubi was viewed as a demon, and naturally, its power was far weaker because 75% of it went to create its body and only 25% of its true power could be felt in the negiverse. Creatures of all shapes and sizes froze in place for a moment before screaming in fear, pain, and panic as a pulse wave crossed the lands, setting grass and trees on fire, the skies darkening, and the wind blowing savagely. Only one word could adequately describe the negative reality where 75% of Kyuubi's power was released in a single moment: death. Everyone was out of breath outside the castle, including Kushina and the others, who were lying on the ground motionless with their eyes dialed because their minds had shut down from the ki they were experiencing. When Naruto's last body was being destroyed inside the Kyuubi, the Naruto Tower's heart sensed that Naruto was about to die and called Naruto to it, removing his body from inside the Kyuubi. The abrupt loss of Naruto's body caused Kyuubi to roar in agony. Naruto's body lay on the ground in front of the Tower Heart, soaking up the energy. The Tower Heart then started to heal him by sending chakra into his body through the gauntlet on his hand. The Kyuubi looked down as the Tower Heart covered Naruto's body with chakra, sensing it. The Tower Heart glared and uttered the words, "Foolish ninja. You intend to murder me and take away my power, not in my opinion." When he opened his mouth and swallowed the Tower Heart, he said, "I'll devour you and your Tower Heart so that you will die a slow and painful death inside of me as I take back my power plus yours and use it to destroy all you hope to create and protect." He then reached down and grabbed Naruto by his left leg, jerking him upwards and causing him to scream in pain as he was jerked into the air. Kyuubi then watched as Naruto started to fall, opening its gaping mouth and moving his head to let Naruto plow right into his mouth and down his throat in a single motion. All Naruto could sense inside Kyuubi was pain as his body burned from the acids in his stomach, his wounds from the stabbing, and the Kyuubi chakra. When Naruto opened his eyes, a light breeze was blowing across his face as he floated on the ocean's surface. By blinking, Naruto shifted his body so that his lower half was beneath the water and his upper half was above it. Naruto thought, what happened?" as he looked around. "What brought me here, Dad?" He Kyuubi. As he started to feel depressed over what had happened, Naruto lost his will and started to drown. Naruto heard a female voice ask, "Why are you here?" as he sank beneath the water, the light on the surface growing progressively darker until it was completely dark. Naruto thought, "What the?" as he blinked and glanced around. "Why are you here when the people you have come to care for are in danger?" The female voice asked you stated that you would give up your life to save the lives of those you lost, didn't you? If that's the case, why aren't you racing to the surface and looking for land to return to your starting point? In an attempt to see anything in the shadows, Naruto bit his lip. What about Kushina Tinbeard and the dwarfs Nat and the minions? What about Nori? The female voice asked, will you simply allow yourself to be consumed by darkness as your loved ones perish at the hands of the beast you have suppressed for so long? The voice said, if you're strong enough to hold that beast back all these years, doesn't that mean that you're stronger than it is? Why can't you show that beast his place? As Naruto clenched his fist and closed his eyes. Naruto started to gag on the water he drank, so he quickly closed his mouth after opening it to scream. When Naruto felt his feet hit something solid, he kicked with all the energy he had left to reach the surface, and then the female voice said, hold on. Naruto was pushed through the water and felt the water rush past him. Around him, rays of sunlight appeared and then burst through the water, making it brighter and bigger. Naruto collapsed to his knees on the solid surface he knew was on his hands and knees, gasping for air as he did so. He opened his eyes as he caught his breath and noticed that he was several feet above the water's surface as it passed by. Naruto's eyes widened and he blinked before hearing the woman's voice once more say, the sea is beautiful, is it not? After taking a moment to look around, Naruto uttered, yes, it is. What are you? Do you have the head of the creature I'm on? You ask me what I am and call me a creature, the voice said, but you say you don't care what a being is, that you would treat them the same way. Your question is meaningless if what you said is accurate because, to you, any label that describes who I am would be meaningless. Naruto replied, I suppose so, but who are you and what about my other question? The individual replied, yes, you are on my head. As for my name, call me Leviathan. Naruto replied, where are we and how did I get here? What are you going to do with me? Leviathan said, recall how Tinbeard claimed that a person could only be revived if they had not reformed, and how Nat claimed that minions would roam aimlessly until they came across a hive. We are now on the far plane, which is the plane of existence between life and death. How do you know what they said to me? Scowled Naruto. Before launching himself out of the water and starting to glide above it, Leviathan briefly dipped into the water, causing the mist to spray up and hit Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened in shock and amazement at everything he saw, and he turned to look back at the size of the Leviathan's body. Does my body not remind you of something? Leviathan asked. Something with which you have had contact. After a moment of reflection, Naruto's eyes widened and he uttered, the sea dragon hide, it's yours. Very good, Naruto, Leviathan remarked, since I have decided not to change, I feel a connection to you because you took that hide for your gauntlet. The connection between us was indiscernible at first, but after what transpired, it grew too strong to ignore. I decided to find out what was causing your pain and suffering because I could feel it. I have witnessed a lot over the years, but you are something I never thought I would see again. I haven't seen a soul as noble as yours since the time of the great beast Ragnarok. Naruto, bewildered, questioned, Ragnarok, what's that? You heard about the great beast that the king of the sixth kingdoms defeated. Leviathan said Ragnarok was its name. Only a tiny portion of Ragnarok's actual power is present in the creature you know as Kyuubi. Leviathan remarked, but that is not something you should worry about right now, as Naruto scowled, especially considering that people you care about are in danger. But what can be done? Naruto said, clenching his fist and closing his eyes. Have passed away. Your book doesn't end just because that chapter of your life is over, Leviathan said. Are you prepared to turn the page and begin a new chapter in a book that is much bigger than you initially believed it to be? Are you saying there's a way to save them? Naruto asked, his eyes widening. To save everyone else and halt Kyuubi and the warlock. Leviathan replied, there is a way. The question is, are you willing to pay the price? Anything, said Naruto. To save Nori and the others, I will do anything. Even during the reign of the sixth king, I was ancient, Leviathan remarked. I have witnessed the darkening of both worlds for years. You deserve to rule the seventh kingdom of the negiverse as its king. In my opinion, make a vow to me that you will end the darkness that permeates everyone and bring light to the world. I will give you my life force. If you do this, you will be reborn with it as something stronger than the two of us combined. Do you agree? Yes, Naruto replied. All right, Leviathan said. Your existence as Naruto Uzumaki, a human, is now over. Everything that held you together as a person is gone. Make use of this gift I've given you to fulfill your obligation. She started to glow and said, may the blessing of the dragons aid you. Naruto's tower heart glowed inside the Kyuubi, and then a figure started to emerge next to it. The figure smirked as it positioned one hand on the tower heart and the other on the Kyuubi's stomach, saying, absorb, after looking around as it fully formed next to the heart and noticing a gauntlet on its left hand. The Kyuubi laughed outside as it slapped the warlock's figure back and forth into the remains of the castle walls with its paws, hearing his agonized screams each time. Coughing up more blood, Warlock pleaded, "Please, Kyuubi, don't hurt me in exchange for my life, I'll give you anything you desire." Before Kyuubi started coughing up blood and covering Warlock in it, he laughed at the Warlock's attempt to save himself. Kyuubi, looking perplexed, uttered the words, "What is Hokage?" as his throat was torn open from the inside out and he started to choke on blood. A figure carrying the tower heart emerged from the Kyuubi's throat, and then wings appeared on his back, allowing him to soar into the air and fly outside the castle, where all of the people who had fled could be seen. The figure landed outside the castle close to the group, sat the tower heart down beside it, then put his hand on it and sent a chakra pulse through it. Each person who was on the ground due to Kyuubi power discovered that they could breathe again and were no longer able to sense Kyuubi power as the chakra pulse erupted from the tower heart. The figure said, "Tinbeard, Kushina, Nori, Nat, watch this for me," as they gradually started to stir. When Nori and the others heard their name, they turned to see the figure. Their eyes widened as they saw that the figure resembled Naruto, but he was taller now, and he had blue, red, and gold scales on the top of his head, and the side of his face. A pair of leather wings was visible behind the figure, and the hands had nails that resembled claws. "Naruto, is that you, sire?" Nori said, observing the face and the blue eyes that now had gold slits in the center. Everyone looked shocked as Naruto nodded his head. He then turned and said, "Yes, it's me. Protect the heart for me while I go deal with Kyuubi." Before anyone could respond, he took off in the direction of Kyuubi. The Kyuubi that had recovered from Naruto slitting its throat roared at him before attempting to leap on him when he returned. Naruto used his flying ability to fly over Kyuubi's attack and land on his snout. He then stabbed Kyuubi's left eye with his gauntlet-covered hand and uttered the words, "Absorb." Kyuubi screamed in anger and attempted to escape Naruto, but Naruto managed to seize the optic nerves inside Kyuubi's enormous eye, which was now getting smaller as Naruto absorbed its power. Naruto turned his head toward the ruined castle walls and inhaled deeply before exhaling a stream of flames, using the life force he was absorbing from the Kyuubi. As Naruto combined some of the life force he was drawing from Kyuubi with his own, the debris started to melt before beginning to transform and take shape. Naruto was holding onto the Kyuubi, which was attempting to shake its head to get rid of Naruto, when a figure emerged from the molten rock and metal, followed shortly by a dragon with red and black scales. "Listen, I'm Naruto Leviathan, your creator," Naruto said in a dragonic tongue. "I will give you the name Bahamut, King of the Dragons, if you accept me as your creator and master. Do you agree?" "So be it, Naruto Leviathan. I, Bahamut, King of the Dragons, swear to serve you," Bahamut said with a roar. "In order to attack the king of the Biju, Kyuubi no Kitsune, and take its power for yourself," Naruto released Kyuubi and launched himself into the air. With two enormous wings, roaring Bahamut launched itself into the air, then flew toward the Kyuubi and bit into its neck as its body slithered around it, starting to rob the Kyuubi of its life. When Naruto landed on the ground, he noticed the warlock's body there, and the warlock started to retreat in terror. As he started to stalk toward the body, Naruto grabbed the warlock by the neck and lifted him off the ground, saying, "Warlock, you have lived off the lives of others like a parasite for too many years. Today I will end your existence." Warlock replied, "You can't kill me. Even if you hate me, you won't hurt your father." Smirking, Naruto bit his thumb, causing it to bleed, and then stabbed the bleeding finger into Minato's body, precisely where his heart was. He said, "Who said anything about killing my father? Did you know that dragon's blood is like the ultimate holy water? It rids the body of all impurities and heals all damage to it while returning the body back to its prime. Now that I have become basically a dragonic being, my blood is the same way. My blood is killing you while healing all of Minato injuries. Pray that if you ever reform, Warlock, you never cross my path or I'll destroy you," Naruto said as he unleashed a massive amount of ki, causing Warlock to whimper before fainting. Naruto took his finger off Minato's chest after he fainted and observed the healing process. He noticed that the Kyuubi was now dead and that only the corpse remained when he looked to his right. With a frown, Naruto surveyed his surroundings and remarked, "What a day. I hope tomorrow will be better." The inhabitants of Naruto Kingdom started to re-enter the castle's ruins after the battle was over. Framing his surroundings, Naruto mused, "All that hard work and time gone. It's a dark time in our kingdom, but the virus known as the Warlock is dead. I used my blood to purify Minato of it as well as heal him so you can for the first time truly be united with your husband Kushina," Naruto said, turning to the group standing behind him. With a distressed expression on her face, Kushina uttered, Why call me my name instead of?" Naruto interrupted her and replied, I'm not sure I can still call you mother after what has happened to me. I am no longer human, I am a dragonic being now. I entered the far plane, the land between life and death where the souls of those who can be resurrected or respawned are. There I met the spirit of Leviathan, the dragon your people killed and used to make my gauntlet. Tinbeard. Leviathan, being a being who was old even in the 6th kingdom of the negiverse, was very wise. She granted me her blessing and asked me to bring about the 7th kingdom of the negiverse. With her request and her blessing I have been reborn into what you see before you. I have gained some of her great wisdom along with her power. I am Naruto Leviathan now. I don't care what you are or what you look like, you will always be my son Naruto, Kushina said, her eyes welling with tears. Looking down, Naruto noticed that his right hand now had claw-like nails. Tinbeard remarked, you are still our king, your majesty, my people still serve you. Show respect in the presence of the overlords, Nat said, slamming the Browns' heads into the ground. I still love you and don't care what you look like, even though I do think this makes you a little sexier, Naruto said, grinning slightly as he looked at Nori, who came forward and grinned at him while taking his hand. She put her hand over his heart and said, any woman you choose to bed, sire, should care about who you are here rather than what you look like. Nori leaned forward to give Naruto a kiss on the lips as he blushed a little. When Kushina and the others saw this, they grinned. Then, as they surveyed the damage, Nat asked, sire, what should we do about the castle? Naruto looked around after breaking the kiss and uttered, Nat, have the minions bring my tower heart to me. Nat kicked a Brown to get them all moving and said, you heard the overlord, move it. Naruto shook his head, grinning, and Kushina turned to face Minato's body before asking, what are you going to do to him? I would be giving the people of Konoha an excuse for how they treated me if I held him responsible for the warlock's actions, Naruto said, glancing at him. I won't kill him, but I might never be able to relax around him because he needs to gain my trust before I will allow him to do anything worthwhile for me. Looking down, Kushina said, I understand. When the Browns and Nat returned with the tower heart, Naruto commanded, set it down gently. Naruto approached it. As they were doing so, put his hand on it, closed his eyes, and started to focus. At first, everyone seemed perplexed, but then the castle's debris started to glow. Sire, you, said Nat as everyone's eyes widened. Yes, Nat, said Naruto, who continued to keep his eyes closed. I'm transferring my power into my castle's walls unless I give it instructions not to. The tower heart will be able to alert me and begin wall repairs if the walls are attacked. This will further safeguard my people and my castle. Naruto collapsed to one knee as the walls reformed, panting and uttering, that's all I can do. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt Nori give him a little of her life force, and she swiftly moved to his side to assist him in standing up. When Nori stated, that's all I can do for now, Naruto began to open his mouth. Rest, sir. Naruto, I don't want you to call me sire anymore, as my friend and lover, Naruto uttered. Call me Naruto. Nat and Tinbeard. The same is true for you. A man who stands with his allies is not only more difficult to defeat but also has a better chance of winning than one who stands alone. While Kushina and Minato, who are the most knowledgeable about the human world, will advise me on it, you two will be my advisors on this one. You are my lady and my love. Nori, I will always listen to you, and you will be by my side. With wide eyes, Tinbeard said, thank you for the honor, I mean Naruto. The minions will see me doing it and believe they can, so I won't call you that, Nat said. Thank you, sir, that's how dumb they are. Yes, Naruto replied with a laugh. I remember some pretty dumb minions that were leviathans. Do you know anything about the minion peacock? While everyone else appeared perplexed, Nat's eyes widened before she started laughing. It's an old story passed down between wiser minions, Nat said, waving her hand to conceal her blush. A Brown once learned to talk and was given the name Peacock because, after he did, he strutted around boasting about himself like a peacock until the minion master gave him that name. He would do everything in his power to demonstrate that his dick was larger than a pea. After being called that, believing it to be an insult, he would do anything and everything, including yanking and herbal remedies. Naruto stated, from Leviathan's memories she seemed to remember that it was the last that ultimately led to his death. Yes, Nat said, I've heard that he thought he could stretch it, so he wrapped a wire around it and threw himself off a tower while the wire was wrapped around his dick. However, his dick stretched Phineas straight out of his body. Despite being called Peacock, he passed away without a cock. As they heard this, some of the nearby dwarfs snickered, while others laughed. Naruto let out a sigh and stated, well, we have place for everyone to sleep, but all the work we had on the castle will have to be restarted, it seems. Everyone turned to watch Bahamut as he flew through the air after hearing a roar. Then, he took a deep breath and started to breathe fire into the ground outside the castle, frightening everyone. What is that damn dragon doing? Tinbeard asked. I'm not sure, Naruto said before he took off and ran for one of the entrances that would lead to the top of the walls. He appeared as perplexed as everyone else. Come on, let's get to the walls. The ground in front of the castle appeared to be a lava field by the time they reached the top of the walls and peered outside. Several people gasped as Bahamut shot high into the air before plummeting back down into the middle of the lava field. Nat asked, "What happened?" after Bahamut vanished into the earth. Everyone looked around when a rumbling sound was heard, and then the ground started to tremble and split. Laves started to shoot out of various places around the valley as the castle walls shook and Naruto grunted in pain as he felt his life force being drained trying to keep the walls together. A fissure of steam started to spit out of the ground, and then the ground of the valley itself started to split with more steam coming out of it. Many people stood in shock and awe, terrified of the calamity that shook the valley, and screamed in terror. When two dwarfs noticed that the ground in the middle of the castle was sinking, they screamed, attracting other people's attention as they gazed at the now deep hole in the middle of the castle. Everyone in the valley either hunkered down in terror or clung to what they could to stay afloat as the ground continued to tremble and be destroyed over the course of the following 15 minutes. Everyone looked around, either anxious or grateful, as the ground finally stopped trembling. Naruto appeared very pale and was on the verge of fainting. Pointing to the hole in the ground in the middle of the castle walls, Nori said, "Naruto, look." Everybody turned to see what Nori was pointing at, and initially they were all perplexed. However, Naruto's eyes widened and he exclaimed, "What the hell?" as his improved vision started to detect a glow emanating from the pit's darkness. Before anyone could question Naruto about it, they all started to notice the glow and watched as the heart of Naruto's tower emerged from the shadows. Everyone's eyes widened as they saw a massive glowing bubble of energy rising from the darkness, but they couldn't tell what it was until it almost reached the surface. As it approached, they could see that the tower heart was on top of something. Lava started to pour out of the hole until it reached the castle walls, which made Naruto grunt further as he felt the lava destroying the walls. This happened after the bubble with the tower heart on top was floating in the air above the castle walls. The lava rapidly turned to stone as the glowing bubble descended until it settled on top of it. Before the energy bubble started to rise toward the tower heart from its base, a faint hum could be heard. Everyone's eyes widened as it did, and Nori exclaimed, "It can't be." Naruto questioned, "It can't be what, Nori?" as everyone turned to stare at her. "Are you aware of what's happening?" According to Nori, "It's the White City." "That's not possible," Tinbeard said, his eyes widening. "A myth is the White City." With a puzzled expression, Kushina inquired, "What is the White City?" Nori remarked, "The White City was a legendary city created by the king of the First Kingdom and ruled by the kings of the Second and Third Kingdoms." After noticing Naruto's bewildered expression after the king of the Third Kingdom passed away, it is said that his wife, an elder elf, and their halfling son used their life force to seal the kingdom away in a location that no man could ever reach, allowing the king's spirit to rest in peace knowing his home was safe for all eternity. Tinbeard stated, "Some people claim that the elves took the city for themselves after the king's death, which is another reason why they are viewed with such contempt and distrust." Lava was still flowing from one of the new mountains, and Bahamut erupted from its summit with a roar. Bahamut landed outside the castle's walls after flying in its direction. "What have you done, Bahamut?" asked Naruto, glancing at the creature. Everyone was shocked when Bahamut laughed and said, "You may be wiser and stronger, but you still have much to learn." He did this in a language that everyone could understand but not speak. "What do you mean, what's going on, Bahamut?" scowled Naruto. Bahamut stated, "The history of the world is recorded in ages. Do you know why or what an age is exactly?" Everyone was perplexed and Bahamut responded, "We dragons have lived far longer than anyone could imagine. We are the recorders of history. It is our lives that are considered ages. When all the dragons in the world die, it is considered an end of an age, but the dragons do not reform as something else. We choose instead to search the far plane for a soul who is pure of heart and noble. Traits we dragons feel are who and what we are. When we find such a soul who has a reason to wish to return to the world of the living, we grant them our blessing, turning them into a dragonic being like you are now. In doing so, that being becomes the evader of the dragons and a new age is born. Feel honored because you are only the seventh to be granted our blessing, with your great ancestor being the previous evader." Gritting his teeth, Naruto uttered the words, "You used me." Bahamut replied, "Did you not use me to save your friends and loved ones? Did you not accept Leviathan's blessing? Do you truly feel that you have been used or tricked, or do you feel that you have truly been blessed? Did you not use the gift you have received to save your father's life from that parasite? Remember the words you spoke to Tinbeard when you first met him about what is truly precious." With a frown, Naruto remarked, "You could have asked me or told me the truth." Bahamut continued, But what if you were not actually noble and pure of heart? What if you were just a power-hungry soul who would have done anything to gain power for yourself? We gave you just enough power and knowledge that you would need to stop Kyuubi and save your people. The best way to test someone to see what they would do with power is see what they would do with the power they already had. You could have drained the Kyuubi of all its life force yourself and killed your father even though he was just a puppet to the warlock. If you had killed both of them, then we would know that you were not truly who we thought you were, and the dragonic blood in you would have killed you. Seeing that you revived me and gave me the Kyuubi life force as well as saving your father proved that Leviathan was right about you. I see your point and the wisdom behind it, but what now? Said Naruto, biting his lip. Bahamut stated, a new age has begun. You have been blessed with the knowledge and blood of the dragons. If you have need of us, you will know how to revive us. Once revived, the dragons will aid you with whatever your current need is, and once done will give you a gift as thanks. They will then leave you and spread to the world to watch as the new age passes by. My gift to you is the legendary White City, which was hidden deep within the core of the world where no mortal could touch it. Naruto replied, thank you Bahamut for your gift and blessing. Bahamut stated, I should warn you that when a new age begins, darkness always spreads to try and consume the light the new age can create. There are those who will seek not only you but also the dragons for our power, but also our knowledge. No dragon will go against you, but we will not fight all your battles for you either. We are a peaceful race as much as possible and wish to see only peace and prosperity. You will have to fight many battles and kill many in order to stop the darkness of the world. Do not be consumed by it. Naruto replied, I understand. May the new age be a long and peaceful one. May your rule also be goodbye. Bahamut said, flapping his wings and taking off. It's never a dull moment with you, is it Naruto? Tinbeard said after he left. The phrase, Naruto name means maelstrom. Kushina laughed and remarked, there is nothing dull or calm about a maelstrom. Everyone turned to see Minato sitting up after hearing a groan. He looked around and asked, what's going on? As she tackled him and started kissing him as if her life depended on it, Kushina laughed. Before starting to move toward the entrance to descend into the walls and emerge into the courtyard, Naruto gave a slight smile and said, thank you. Where are you going, Naruto? Asked Nori. To check out our new home, of course, Naruto said, turning to face her. With the exception of Kushina and Minato, everyone's eyes widened before they turned to face the city and started to follow Naruto. Minato said, what's going on Kushina, where are we? After snatching her and pushing her away long enough to breathe as she gathered Minato in her arms and started sobbing into his chest, Kushina could only laugh. Did I miss something important? Minato asked, pulling her closer to him as he started to return the hug, confused.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.